could you stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everybody.
Morning, Mr. Chair.
Morning, Mr. Chair.
Okay, could I get a motion to approve the county board minutes?
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Jelinski, seconded by
Second.
Commissioner Lemire. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Mr. Chair, I know Tabitha's on remote, and I think she had one.
She had one.
Mr. Chair, we did remove soil and water. She was not able to make it today.
Okay, we removed soil and water. She can't make it today. Okay, could I get a motion to
Correct.
accept the agenda as presented with this removal? Got a motion by Commissioner Wincher, seconded by Commissioner Lemire. Any further discussion? If none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Mental Health Awareness Month proclamation. Morning, Brad.
Not working? Not working. Try this one quick. Oh, is the battery dead then now? Use that one. Thank you, Brett.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. May is Mental Health Month, so we have some people here who are going to do a proclamation. So I'm going to have them introduce themselves and then read the proclamation.
Thank you.
Jeff Bowman, Morrison County Social Services Adult Unit Supervisor.
Casey Hines with Oak Ridge Homes, Mental Health Coordinator for them.
Good morning, I'm Julie Newman with Productive Alternatives. I am the supervisor for our IPS Employment Services.
Good morning, I'm Beth Bruns, and I'm an adult mental health case manager here at Morrison County.
And the people here are from our local LAC, which is comprised of community members and individuals that are subject to mental health and family members. And so we have our mental health proclamation. So for May 2021, whereas mental illnesses are medical conditions that disrupt a person's thinking, feeling, mood, ability to relate to others, and daily functioning, just as diabetes is a disorder of the pancreas, mental illnesses are medical conditions that often result in a diminished capacity for coping with the ordinary demands of life. And whereas mental illnesses can affect persons of any age, race, religion, or income, mental illnesses are not the result of personal weaknesses, lack of character, or poor upbringing. And whereas without treatment, the consequences of mental illness for the individual and society are astounding, including unemployment, substance abuse, homelessness, inappropriate incarceration, isolation, or even death. And whereas stigma, negative stereotyping, and prejudices erode the confidence that mental disorders are real, treatable health conditions, thus impeding a person in getting the help they need and impose attitudinal, structural, and financial barriers to effective treatment and recovery. And whereas early identification and treatment is of vital importance by ensuring access to the treatment and recovery supports that are proven effective, recovery is accelerated and the further harm related to the course of illness is minimized. As whereas mental illnesses are treatable with appropriate effective medication and a wide range of services tailored to their needs, most people who live with serious mental illnesses can significantly reduce the impact of their illness and find a satisfying measure of achievement and independence. Now, therefore, we, the Commissioners of Morrison County, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2021 to be Mental Health Awareness Month in Morrison County and urge all citizens to work together to break the stigma of mental illness and provide our support to those suffering and recovering from mental illness.
Thank you. Could I get a motion on that?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Got a motion by Commissioner Lemire, seconded by Commissioner Blaine. Any further discussion? Just like to thank you for all you do. It's one of those diseases that's real hard to see something wrong with, but everybody has different challenges and stuff, and I appreciate what you do. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Any other discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Right, and I'm
Pictures?
sure everybody would like a picture, so I'm gonna take that.
Stand up here behind us.
Oh, you're fine, not a problem, don't worry about that. Where'd my shield go? So, all right. Don't get too close, come on.
We got this system down.
Morning, Julie.
Oh, I thought I turned this monitor off.
But it's still on.
Well, I obviously did something wrong. There we go. Couldn't be more perfect. All right, excellent.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Does that give you enough room?
Okay, next we've got Hands of Hope. Soil and Water, they're not going to be here today, so,
Good morning.
good morning.
Good morning.
I'll sit here, that might work best. So I know we've been here a couple times in the last month. Tabby
Yes.
asked me to come just do a little update about Hands of Hope and kind of what we're seeing. So, again, I'm Stephanie Ock, I'm the director of Hands of Hope. And I think most of you know about our agency and what we do, but for those maybe that aren't as familiar, we provide services to victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, child abuse, and general crime in Morrison and Todd County. We actually have some contract service work through Morrison County Social Services to do services to primarily domestic and sexual assault victims in Morrison County. We have a 24-hour hotline, so I wanted to just make sure to say that and to give that number. So if anyone wants to access that number at any point, they can do that by calling 320-632-4878. That would be how people could get connected up with services. They can call, or we actually take walk-ins, and we've been, through the pandemic, open and providing services this whole time, so they can continue to do that. We've done some things a little more virtually, though. For example, we have a virtual support group through Zoom. It's being facilitated by someone out of our Long Prairie office, but anybody can be a part of that. And again, we help with a lot of things like assisting with orders for protection, helping someone kind of navigate through the criminal justice or civil justice system if they are a victim of crime or abuse. Our court system right now is kind of backlogged, and I have a feeling that it's going to get pretty busy down the road here, but that is one of those services that we provide support to. We have seen an increase primarily in assistance that people are asking for, like emergency assistance. So we've helped a lot, helping people relocate. Locks changed, food insecurity, that kind of stuff. We've always done that, but right now that people are able to finally get out and move and be mobile again. We're seeing people trying to get out of domestic violence situations in particular, and so we're trying to help them get into apartments or other places. So that's an area that we've seen an increase. We have seen our numbers, last year when I came, I think it was July when I came, and at that point our numbers were a lot lower because of not having as many people be able to come access us. We were closed, our office was closed for a period of time, and we were only providing services through phone and that type of thing. But now that we've been open again, our numbers are rising. We're still not to the same level that we were before, but I think part of that again is the inability for people to make a report, get involved in the system. A lot of those cases are not going through the criminal court system in the same way, or are being delayed a little bit. So that's made a difference in some of our numbers. with presentations in the community, we've still been doing presentations, but that of course has changed in the last year too. So we have a half-time person who does all of our presentations in schools, and she's just been working really hard to do outreach in a lot of places. She created a blog, she created a YouTube channel, Facebook, Instagram, all these different things, trying to connect with people. And so she started off by doing some virtual presentations to schools, and that has developed now into being able to go into schools. For National Crime Victim Rights Week, when we were here, she went into some schools. She went into Swanville, she went into a school in Browerville, but she's been in the Little Falls Middle School, just going out and like handing things out to kids and trying to get our phone number and information out there for anyone who may need it. Let's see, so we utilize volunteers. We have seen in the last couple years, our numbers are declining. I think the kind of volunteer work that we have people do, the crisis line, there's a huge commitment in terms of training and also in terms of what we ask people to do. And so it's a little bit difficult. So we have 5 right now. Some of them have been with us for, well, I think the one that's been around the longest has been there since 1990. So we've got some people that are gonna probably turn over at some point, and then I'm not sure what that will look like for us. But if anyone wants to know more about volunteer opportunities, there's information on our website about that, and they could certainly connect up. Lindsay Harp is the person who is coordinating our volunteer program. So we did not have our fundraiser the last couple of years, so that's impacted our funding a little bit. But we've had some good opportunities like we had some support from the Otto Bremer Foundation. We recently got some money from Burlington Northern Santa Fe to help with our violence prevention program. So we're doing a lot of outreach and trying to come up with other ways to bring funding in to continue to provide services at the same level that we are. I just wanted to give an update on some of the new things that we're doing. We received an anonymous donation from someone. We didn't qualify for funding through the Minneapolis Foundation because we're not in their service area, but they connected up with us with someone who wanted to give to the cause, and so we received a $15,000 donation to provide mental health services. And we are working with True Balance, so we have a cooperative agreement with them, and we are helping with out-of-pocket expenses for anyone who needs those mental health services that are our clients. Because deductibles are so huge, sometimes people don't have health insurance. Some of the clients we work with qualify for a program called Crime Victim Reparations, but for those that don't, the cost of out-of-pocket mental health expenses are really great, and so this has allowed us to have that. Because it's very specific with one program that we're working with, we have working with the Otto Bremer Foundation, where we're gonna find out at the end of this month if we received additional funding from them, but they were very interested in that program that we're doing, and we'd like to expand that so that we have clients in Todd County or those that are not working with True Balance and are working with someone else that would like to have a similar support from us. So we're trying to expand that a little bit from what we're currently doing. We've also found a huge need for assistance with like legal help. So anyone who's trying to get the divorce process going or custody issues because of abuse, people that are being evicted that shouldn't be evicted, any of those kinds of legal help. We've had a cooperative agreement with Central Minnesota Legal Services for a long time. Once a month, they meet with at least 3 of our clients, and sometimes more. If we have a greater need, they'll set up additional appointments, but people will get like a free 1-hour consultation at least. And then for those cases that they can take on, they will. What we've found is that hour is helpful, but most of our clients don't ever get their case taken on by legal aid. They're spread too thin. They have very specific funding streams, so they have to fit into a certain area in order for that to happen. If someone's filed divorce against one of our clients, then they can sometimes get help, but in order to initiate a divorce, legal aid won't help with that type of thing. So we are working with Central Minnesota Legal Services through a cooperative grant with Sourcewell for some community innovation funding. And we just put our application in yesterday, so we're hoping to get some money to bring an attorney on staff for the next year to really help out with our clients and the work that we're doing. So I'm really excited about that. I don't have any idea what the opportunity is, if we're gonna have a lot of competition or if we'll have any luck with that, but I think it's very much a need. The other piece that we have is legal aid themselves went out and got some some of the COVID-related funding, and they put legal kiosks in a bunch of places. So there are a lot of public places around the state that have legal kiosks, and then there's some programs like ours. So we have it's basically a computer system that gives clients access to a lot of legal documents, legal, like questions about, for example, we were playing with it and we were looking at, like if someone needed to get guardianship over an adult child because they couldn't like file an order for themselves or some of those types of things and they were being abused. We went in there like, how would you find that information? And they have all these fact sheets and things. And so there's a printer there. There's a ability for them to scan their documents and send them to legal aid. They can meet with an attorney by Zoom. They can attend a court hearing by Zoom, all that in this one little kiosk, which they provided to us. We didn't pay for that. And so we're just, through our cooperative agreement with them, have that. And so our clients also can access that, which is pretty cool, I think. Some of the issues that we're still continuing to see, which I'm sure you're familiar with, affordable housing. A lot of the clients that we have that want to move on and get out of an abusive situation don't have anywhere to go. That's been kind of a struggle. We also have people that have a lack of childcare, lack of transportation. We do what we can to try to, get people where they need to go, but it's a struggle. The other piece that we've looked at and talked about a little bit even at our board meeting, which Jeff's on our board, we talked about the whole issue of supervised visitation and what a great need there is for that type of service around here. And so we'll continue to look for grant opportunities and partnerships where we can be a part of that and those types of issues because they impact our clients. But I know we also have had some discussions with some of the social workers about the fact that, there's a need there too. And if there was some kind of a service available here in the county that they could access, that they would do that. So, we're continuing to look for that kind of thing too, so. That's kind of what's happening with us in a nutshell right now. So, do you have any questions for me about any of that? It's busy. It's always busy work, for sure.
Does anybody got any questions? Commissioner Jelinski.
I don't know that I really have a question, but it's for everyone to know, it's that the need is there all of the time. And that Hands of Hope, of course, depends on what? They depend on grant funding.
Yes.
They depend on donations in order to survive, in order to be that helpful person at the other end of the phone. Very often it's law enforcement, it's Hands of Hope. It's Hands of Hope, it's law enforcement. And then through the chain of events as it goes. So and yes, as you said, I sit on that committee, but it truly is, when you talk about volunteerism and you have somebody there that's been, 3 decades? They're not going to last forever. Thus, the need for committed volunteer people to work with the agency. So thank you for being here today, Steph. I appreciate that.
I just want to thank you for all you do. You've given reports quite a bit, and there's people out there that need a lot of help, so we thank you.
Thanks.
Yep.
Thanks.
Okay, next will be Sheriff's Report.
Have a good day, Steph.
Good morning.
Morning, Sheriff.
Morning, Sheriff. Morning, Chief.
Morning. This is new for me.
Yeah.
Well,
nice
welcome.
seeing you.
Don't be such a stranger. Okay. Item 1
Two different topics.
is neither are in the board packet, or one is?
Neither.
Best.
Or no, one.
It's just under sheriff's report. So the first thing is going to be the grant. The second thing is the STS
Okay,
grant that was
perfect.
previously discussed last
This
meeting.
is the first item.
Yep.
So we'll wait till everybody has a copy in front of them. If you remember, last week we kind of talked a little bit about this grant process. And we want to come back with a little bit of information and have the board accept the grant. This was a comprehensive, secured, responsible drug disposal program grant that the Morrison County Sheriff's Office was listed as the fiscal financial agent. So Greg Shermers, the Chief of Little Falls, is with us today. We've been working in a collaborative effort as far as being the financially responsible for this grant. The grant is through the Institute of Intergovernmental Research, and the funding comes from the Department of Justice. That's the who. If you go down to the what, we broke it down. It's a $100,000 grant. What does this include? It's 2 drug disposal cabinets, one wall cabinet that goes through a wall, which includes the construction costs. And later on, when we get to the questions, we can kind of talk a little bit about it. I think I mentioned last time that the Little Falls Police Department would be doing this one where people would have 24/7 access to this. They would walk in the lobby, and there'd be like a chute where these drugs would be disposed through the wall. There's 4 tablecloths and things like that where we have tables so we can set up for public events. We'll have tents, things of that nature. And then there's going to be educational materials. The funding also includes 87 cases of Deterra, which is a medication disposal system for in-home use. And basically what that means is once we're at these public events, once we're at the drug take-back event, the county fair, things going on in the city, we'll have these readily available so community members can grab them, no questions asked, which can help them dispose their medications. And of course, it's environmentally friendly, so they can dispose it and then it can go into the garbage. And then it also includes 93 multi-purpose Deterra 2.5 gallon containers. I think we looked it up before we came down, just one of those containers can take like 2,500 pills in itself. The next portion, if we continue moving down, is when. As soon as the contract's finalized, we can, obviously the board has to accept the grant, but then the contract still needs to be finalized. What I mean by that is we've sent the contract to our county attorney. We also sent it to Steve Messerschmidt, the auditor, just to review and make sure all the liability, all the verbiage is correct. And there was a couple of proposed changes, so the Institute for Intergovernmental Research is making those changes, and we should get that back any day. Where? Again, we mentioned the through wall cabinet's going to be installed at the Little Falls Police Department. The 2 drug disposal units will be placed at law enforcement agencies within Morrison County. So that's to be determined. We're looking at options right now. For instance, Royalton Police Department could have one if they want. It'd be similar to what Motley has, what Pierce has, what the Little Falls Police Department has, and what the Morrison County Sheriff's Office has. It's that cabinet for medical disposal unit purposes. And then why, if we want to skip down to that, basically, obviously, we're assisting the community in properly disposing unused and unwanted medications, and it's to help combat our substance abuse problems in our community. So, talking to Chief Shermers with the drug take-back event, which occurred, I believe it was April 24th at Coburn's. It was a 4-hour period where the Little Falls Police Department and the Morrison County Sheriff's Office sat at a table, took back all the unused, expired medications, and just in that 4-hour time frame, we took back 71 pounds of medication. So we do feel that this is something where it's not intrusive on the community. We're up front. We're going to be at a lot of public events to begin with, and now we're going to be handing this out, no questions asked, to people who want them. And we also talked about having these products available at our agencies, so if people want to come in, no questions asked, they can grab them, dispose their pills, and unused medication. So with that, we'll open it up with questions, if anybody has any questions for us.
Commissioner Lemire.
Sheriff, thank you for bringing this forward. The Institute for Intergovernmental Research, can you explain what that is, what that organization is, or? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Because this was a grant given to St. Gabriel's Hospital, and now you taking this one over, right?
Well, what happened, there was an employee that worked for CHI St. Gabe's who reached out to Chief Shermers and I and said, hey, is this something law enforcement could use? And we said, absolutely. So Greg and I were involved in the process of putting the grant together. She just helped assist write it, but technically putting the budget together, where the dollars are gonna go, and controlling the grant was done
We
by
wrote
Greg and I.
we wrote the budget portion of it. She wrote some of the verbiage.
I was just curious if there's been a sense that it's a continued grant per year that you'll have to apply for? So it's a,
So is it possible we could reapply? Absolutely, but as far as we know, it's 100,000 allocated funds to us, and once the grant's done, you know, we would be done as well.
okay.
There's
Thank
no
you.
continuation.
Okay, thank you.
Is anybody, Commissioner Wincher?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I discussed this with our sheriff, and the question I had, again, making these disposables very easy for people to get rid of their drugs and all. And I brought up, you know, could you put them at drugstores such as Walgreens, Colbrins? Because that's where most of your drugs are dispersed, you know, through the pharmacy. Is that a possibility? And if not, you know, again, down the road, because I just think, again, people like convenience, you know, see, so, and I'm also impressed when you said how many pounds of this that's just unbelievable what would happen there, so if you could answer that question for me, please?
I think the chief and I talked about it. Right now, we got like a map, but we don't have defined routes, which gives us a little flexibility as to what we can do with these products. And we talked about getting our communities involved, so yes, that would absolutely be one of the things we'll look at. And anywhere where it's a convenience for people throughout our community, throughout our county to have access to this, we're definitely gonna be reaching out and have that as an option.
Commissioner Jelinski?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When we're talking about this, we're talking about an item that could be placed right here in front of me. That's a bag that you could just pick up and walk out with. And that bag, you're going to take home and you're going to follow the directions to dispose of whatever it is that you have. So my question would be, and to kind of piggyback off of Commissioner Wincher, if I go, and I don't know the answer to this, if I go to Coburn's and get a prescription for XYZ, and I keep it at my house. I take 2 pills and just kind of ignore it. Can I bring that back to Coburn's? Do you guys know that by any chance? Will they dispose of it also?
They will not.
They will not. Okay, good answer. And then if I can just continue, is that when the sheriff first discussed this, quite honestly, I thought it was a little bit of overkill. I'm not lying about it, I'm just saying. I thought it was a little bit of overkill because there are drug disposal places that we've talked about for years that we have here in the community. However, there's one thing that you added with that was that people are a little nervous to come into a law enforcement setting no matter what. The most straight-laced person in the country has never had or never will probably have contact with law enforcement, and they don't want to. Let's be open and honest about it. However, you then have someone who might be on the other side of the line, if you will, that really doesn't want to, but wants to clean up their act. All I have to do is just grab a bag. And thus, I'm going to support this. As a matter of fact, Mr. Chair, I'm going to make a motion to accept this.
Second.
Okay, let's finish on here with Craig. You had a question?
Yeah, I had a couple questions to this, and I appreciate both of our law enforcement heads being here today. So we're looking at prescription drugs only in these, going into these containers, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. The other question I had is security of these boxes, containers, you know, the in-wall or the ones that are being placed. So once something goes in there, it can't be retrieved, right? Or in other words, if we have these set for the public, there isn't an opportunity for someone from the public with uncouth desires to reach their hand in there and retrieve something that someone else has placed in there. Is that correct?
Correct, Commissioner. I can talk a little bit about the home disposal medication, the pouches, and then maybe, Chief, if you want to talk about the cabinet that's going to go at the police department. But Those pouches, basically, we'll have 200 pouches. They'll dissolve approximately 45 pills per pouch. And what happens is, there's like a charcoal pod in there, which you add water to, and it dissolves within minutes. So if people take this home and they put their pills in and they read the instructions and do everything they're supposed to and then seal it, within a matter of minutes, the pills will be inert. The active ingredient is killed. So the at-home use will be covered. And then, Chief, if you want to talk about the cabinet you'll have at the PD.
So the sheriff and I discussed the through-wall cabinet quite a bit, and we felt that the police department lobby and breezeway would be a good fit for that, because we have parking lot surveillance, we have lobby and breezeway surveillance, and that door, so the cabinet is specifically designed so those medications cannot be retrieved. You open a door, you drop your pills in, they fall through a chute, and they're locked and secured in a cabinet on the other side of the wall. So then we would retrieve those cabinets, or those medications as the cabinet becomes full, and then we have a policy in place where we retain those medications securely. So they would be protected.
If I may, Mr. Chair, so Chief Schirmers, so disposal of those medications in that situation would that be different than what Sheriff Larson said, that there's a different process for how those are destroyed or whatever?
Yeah, we want to keep the packets for the public who come in to retrieve those packets, but when we collect the weight and it becomes substantial, we then take that to an incinerator. We secure those medications and take them to an incinerator. I don't think that would be a prudent use to use those packets, and it would be time consuming. So.
Okay, and I appreciate that. And Mr. Chair, if I may, I know this may be somewhat irrelevant, but it comes to mind, so I feel I just want to ask the question. So in the work of law enforcement, when we make arrests of individuals and confiscate things like heroin or methamphetamine or other illicit drugs that we see so prevalently in the media when this happens, how are those handled and or disposed, or are those sent to, so what happens in that situation with those illicit drugs?
It's kind of the same process. Sometimes we're holding on to the drugs for a couple years because of evidence purposes. Other times, we're allowed to destroy it, which means we're going to use the proper means, which we do pretty much the same with the pills. But yeah, there's a process, and it's just not dumping it in the dumpster and available to the public.
And that's separate from this program. Those,
Yeah.
the heroin and those drugs are disposed of. In a similar way, we take them to I don't know the sheriff's policy, but we will transport them to an incinerator facility, have them destroyed, the weight recorded, and then that's how we account for that.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Sheriff, the pieces that go home, the bags that go home, they put their pills in there, you put water with it, then do they dispose of that down the sink or something, or do the bags get thrown away?
So Commissioner, yeah, they put their pills in, there's gonna be some indicator
Yep.
letting them know that it's reached its maximum capacity. And then once they added the water and followed the directions and they seal the top of that pouch, they'll follow the directions as far as the number of minutes it needs to take to dissolve, and then they can just actually throw it right in their trash.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one question too, for these ones that are going to go to personal use. So I was just curious what the plan was for distributing them to the public in that sense. I guess we never, or maybe we did talk about that.
So the chief and I talked a little bit about that. Again, there's a lot of room for what we can do, and we talked about we're already present at a lot of these events. So we're not looking at spending money for staff. We're already going to the drug take back. We're already going to Coffee with the Cop. We're already going to county fair, parades, things of that nature. So we would just bring these items with, not only having the educational piece with it, as we're talking with community members, but having these pouches available as well on display, no questions asked. If people want them, just handing them out, if that makes sense.
So, Sheriff, in the future, once this program goes into action, and obviously there's going to be people from the public who are following what's happening this morning, if they were to call the Sheriff's Department or Little Falls Police Department and ask about this, they could secure one of those pouches for the asking. Would that be correct?
Yep, once the grant is finalized, which right now, again, they're just working on the verbiage, once that's been accepted, which should be fairly soon, that's when the grant will actually start. And I believe the contract is finalized by November 2021. So we have a few month time frame, but absolutely, we're gonna work with our local media. They can also call us, like you mentioned, Commissioner, at the Sheriff's Office or Little Falls Police Department. And then us just having them available not only at our organizations, but again, hopefully throughout our entire community. So it's not just gonna be centralized in Little Falls. We're hoping to reach, everywhere from Motley to Piers to Royalton, just cover our entire county.
Sounds good, thank you. Commissioner Winchell?
Yeah, one last thing here. When you said there's 200, is that 200 per case? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay, so that's a lot of these, that's quite a few. In my math, it's well over in the 17,000. Do they have an expiration date on them? Because I'm hoping it'll take years that, what I'm saying, but there's no expiration on those things?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Sounds good. Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Jelinski. Could I get a second on that?
I think you have one.
Commissioner
Who
Lemire.
Commissioner Lemire. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Barry.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thanks for coming, Chief. Good to see you.
And then our jail administrator, Scott McKissick, was here at a planning session, I believe it was last week. And it's just for the board to accept some funding, which is a grant through the state of Minnesota for a Sentence to Serve grant. And in fiscal year '22, it'll be $22,681.29. And in fiscal year '23, it'll be $23,452.46. So if I can get the board to accept that, and then I'll just need a signature.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Got a motion by Commissioner Winchell, seconded by
Second.
Commissioner Lemire. Any further discussion? Not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Sheriff.
Sheriff.
Thank you.
Next, we'll have social service report. Brad?
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners.
Morning.
Today I have Jeff Bowman with me, Adult Services Supervisor, for his first report as a social services supervisor. He's been with us for a long time, working in this area, but now he gets to come here and present it. He put together a report on adult mental health services, given that it is Mental Health Month. So I'll turn it over to Jeff.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Jeff?
So yes, like Brad said, I am the Adult Unit Supervisor here at Morrison County Social Services and here to talk about our adult mental health case management. And so adult mental health case management helps adults with serious and persistent mental illnesses gain access to medical, social, educational, vocational, and other necessary services connected to a person's mental health needs. Now, SPMI diagnoses are borderline personality disorder, schizophrenia, major depression, and bipolar. So in order to access adult mental health services, you have to have one of these specific diagnoses. We service adults within the adult mental health world, those that are 18 or older. It is a voluntary service. We try to work with whoever wants to work with us, try to help coordinate, facilitate, get them connected to the very supportive services that we have available in our community. And we work with all individuals based upon their willingness and eligibility, not based upon their insurance. And so we are able to bill medical assistance and other PMAPs for our case management, but we do serve everybody regardless of insurance. And our referrals, they come from a multitude of individuals. They come from our medical professionals, like at St. Gabriel's or other hospital settings. They come from our employment supports, therapists, and also individuals. They apply themselves. And they usually come through our intake social worker. They screen all of the information that comes in, make sure they meet basis of eligibility, and then they send it over my way for assigning to a case manager. We also work very closely with our children's mental health unit. As we know, our children turn into adults, and we want to make sure that they are going to continue to receive the supports necessary to help them be the most successful that they can. And it's a very individualized process, meaning our kids that are serviced through Children's Mental Health are eligible up till the age of 21 if they so choose to. And there's that dual carryover that can be again for adult mental health at 18. So based upon where that child is at in their functioning family, we would be able to continue them with children's mental health or transition to adult based upon their preference. And we're all about meeting the needs of what the person wants. Try to be as most person-centered as we possibly can. And also the diagnoses that we receive, they are completed on a diagnostic assessment by a mental health professional. Now on the next slide, it shows the amount of cases that we serve here at Morrison County in our adult mental health unit. As you can see, we've been pretty consistent with the overall cases that have been coming in and serving over the past several years. Now, there's been a increase in the cases in assessment, and that is solely due to our comprehensive reentry program, which is where we have a licensed social worker up in jail trying to prevent recidivism, individuals coming out of jail, trying to hook them up with as many supports as we can so they don't keep continuing to encounter law enforcement and become incarcerated again. And the next slide we have is the revenue that we receive. Like I said, we are able to bill third-party insurance, medical assistance, and other PMAPs based upon eligibility, and we still serve those that are not covered by insurance, but this is the amount of revenue that we have, and as you can see, it's been increasing over the past several years, and that's been due, we work with a lot of individuals. And so again, we work primarily with those on a voluntary basis, those that want to and are eligible. Now, the next, we're going to talk about those that we work with on an involuntary basis. These are the individuals that go through the mental illness civil commitment process. Here's the statute that identifies what is necessary, what the grounds are for us to move forward. Means any person who has an organic disorder of the brain or substantial psychiatric disorder of thought, mood, perception, orientation, or memory which grossly impairs judgment, behavior, capacity to recognize reality or to reason or understand, which is manifested by instances of grossly disturbed behavior or faulty perceptions and poses a substantial likelihood of physical harm to self or others, and it goes and demonstrates the functioning reasons why we would move forward with, like, what the behaviors, how this is indicated, this statute, indicated by a failure to obtain necessary food, clothing, shelter, or medical care as a result of impairment, an inability for reasons other than poverty, the language is indigence, to obtain necessary food, clothing, shelter, or medical care as a result of the impairment, and it is more probably than not that the person will suffer substantial harm, significant psychiatric deterioration or debilitation, or serious illness unless appropriate treatment and services are provided, a recent attempt or threat to physically harm self or others, recent and volatile conduct involving significant damage to substantial property, and a person does not pose a risk or harm due to mental illness if the impairment is solely due to epilepsy, developmental disability, intoxication, or addiction. So this whole process is started when we receive an examiner statement in support of civil commitment on the next slide. What that pretty much says is we receive a medical opinion saying that this person is in danger to themselves or others if we do not intervene with supports to continue this person to remain in the community. And once we receive a examiner statement of support of commitment, we move forward with the pre-petition screening process. What that means is we have an assigned case manager who conducts a personal interview. We used to do a lot more in-person interviews in the hospital, but as of reasons we all know, we are not doing those. We do them remotely. They investigate the reasons why, explore alternative measures to avoid commitment. We are least restrictive as much as possible, meaning we give the person choices, but if they are still in danger to themselves based upon not following through appropriately with the choices given, we would then look to move forward with our pre-petition screening or submitted petition for civil commitment. And at any time that we do not believe that the behaviors necessitate us to move forward with a submission of a petition, we are able to stop, and we offer voluntary services at any time. And then if after the interview is conducted, a report is generated, we meet as a screening team and we believe that there is enough evidence to move forward with a petition, we contact our county attorney's office and we submit our report, and they have ultimate say whether or not we move forward with a petition. And we have a very good working relationship with our county attorney's office at this moment. We are able to ask questions, they provide feedback and guidance, and we are on the same page as we do not believe that every examiner statement we receive, we need to move forward with a petition, because people have the right to choice. However, when those choices continue to put them at harm, we need to intervene. So once a petition is submitted, a preliminary hearing is scheduled, which is pretty much a evidence hearing to determine if we do move forward with a final hearing or not. And between the two hearings, a independent licensed psychologist examiner is appointed to do a formal review of all the information to give us our professional opinion of what we should do, and whether or not we move forward with a full commitment, which means the individual would remain in a hospital setting until psychiatrically stable enough, meaning they are safe enough to follow through with all of the recommendations and remain in the community, or a stay of civil commitment, which means they're court ordered to follow through with the recommended services, or a dismissal. And a commitment order can last up to 6 months. Now, at the end of 6 months, a request for an extension can be granted, or requested, I should say, and that can be up to 12 months. And commitments are not designed to be this ongoing, forever and ever. They are designed to be short interventions to get the person the supports they need, and if needed, they would move forward with a more long-lasting reduction of their own personal choices, which would be like guardianship, for example. And the next slide, you can see the amount of civil commitment cases that we have had over this past several years now. 2020, as I stated before, was a little bit different than our most normal years, because what happened was a lot of individuals were very reluctant to go to hospital settings when they were starting to exhibit or experience some more severe psychiatric symptoms. Hospitals were not wanting to use these beds. They wanted to keep them for potential COVID individuals. And so even though the numbers in 2020 looked pretty high, pretty normal, that was pretty much through March. And then we received a couple commitments over the course of the year, once hospitals started to work with more people and people began to get more willing to work with or access those types of services. Again, we really try to partner with our individuals on commitment. My experience, sugar works better than vinegar. Trying to give personal choices were allowed. And individuals at the end of a civil commitment have the opportunity to work voluntarily with us. Or they can choose to continue to make their own choices. We encourage utilization of the services that they have been put in place to get them off of their civil commitment. Next thing I want to talk about, just as we're all very familiar, COVID-19 has significantly impacted our community and the ability of our individuals to access services. As we know, providers, they've been experiencing a lot of significant shortages due to their own staff becoming exposed, not wanting to put themselves at risk. This in turn puts a greater impact on our community individuals that we are serving. They don't have as much access to the providers that they are usually relying on to keep them safe in our community. And then once providers were able to start resuming services, a lot of them had to do remote, phone, virtual, face-to-face, not encouraged. We're getting a little bit more back to face-to-face visits, and it doesn't always provide the same level of support, a phone virtual, than a face-to-face, where you get to see more of the body language, the underlying cues that there might be something more than you would get on a virtual or phone call. Our individuals are much more isolated. They're not as willing to go out into the community. The community supports, churches, drop-in centers, they're just a lot and they're not as available as they used to be. A lot of our folks are very reluctant, like I said, to access emergency services, hospitals, emergency rooms. And now for us here at Morrison County, we have been able to provide face-to-face visits for our folks during this entire time. That's solely based upon their preference. If the individuals we're serving through adult mental health case management still wanting to do face-to-face, we have been willing to go out there when following guidelines, but we are able to also still meet virtually, phone, video conferencing as well. And as we know, the weather's getting nicer and it's been a lot easier to schedule outside visits to be able to see our individuals. One of the things also, our case managers have really been working very hard to try to fill the gaps that our providers have not been able to fill over this past year. We are required to provide, at a minimum, month-to-month contact. Once every 3 months, it has to be face-to-face, but once a month, it has to be contact. A lot of our case managers are providing weekly, semi-weekly, just to try to make sure that the individuals are getting the supports that they need.
Just one comment I'd make about COVID and kind of one of the transitions we're seeing in the flexibility we are hopefully going to have is to be able to continue to do some virtual face-to-face and be reimbursed. Prior to COVID, we could not do that. So it does provide flexibility and give clients some options and reduce some administrative burdens from time to time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's allowed our folks to not spend as much time traveling, because we service our folks as long as they remain in a time-excluded facility outside. If they're, let's say, at a foster care setting or board and lodge in another county, we continue to serve them, and so we don't have to travel nearly as far. And the nice thing is, snow days and weather, we are still able to meet the needs of our folks. One of the other things that we've been doing is we have been encouraging like virtual peer support networks that are available to our people we serve. And again, our technology has allowed our visits and supports to still occur. One of the big things that we've got going on is our Region 5 mental health initiative. This is a very good website that is available for all individuals. Region 5 is our neighboring counties that we partner with, Cass, Crow Wing, Wadena, Todd, and Aiken. And this website lists all of the supports that are available for those that want to look based upon what county and what they're looking for, whether it's housing, food, mental health supports, and it puts all the resources together instead of using Google to be able to identify what's out there for folks. One of the big things that's going on also right now is our mental health campaign. There's been some push of advertising over media outlets such as phone, radio, and papers. And we also have a Region 5 Mental Health Initiative Facebook page with general articles, ideas, supports out there, and a way for people to get in contact. Because as we know, Facebook is a big tool that a lot of our folks are utilizing these days. Well, that's our mental health case management for Morrison County. Anybody have any questions?
Does anybody have any questions?
I just have one. Mental health obviously is huge in our country nowadays. It's going to cause a lot of violence. And for every dollar spent on mental health, is there a number that you save on whether it's incarceration or hospitalization? Granted, you can't put a number on the violence, but...
Correct. Commissioner, as we know, preventative is a lot more cost-effective than correcting afterwards. And so we try to do as much front-end work to support our folks to avoid the stress, the on our crisis emergency supports, because they have a huge task above them. And our law enforcement and emergency room, they are the ones dealing with everything, and trying to alleviate this component off of their plate is, yeah, they do what they can, and we do what we can.
It's huge. Appreciate everything you do.
Yes.
Just one comment. I think when you talk about prevention, if you look at the work we're doing with the jail and supporting the jailers and corrections officers there, I think that helps prevent kind of that reentry into jail, and we're continuing to do some studies on that and how that is benefiting us. And again, having mobile crisis outreach available to law enforcement and our emergency rooms is critical to help support them. So, yeah, it's
Appreciate everything you guys do.
Commissioner Jelinski.
Mr. Chair, thank you. I'm looking at the mental illness graph. 2020 would have been a banner year had it continued on, I'm assuming.
Correct. As far as the individuals that we were serving on a commitment, correct. There has just been a great increase. The more connected people get virtually, the less they could get connected personally, I believe, which is significantly represented in the amount of commitments that we are working with on these days.
And I'm just going to use the assumption word, which we know we shouldn't. 21 probably will be another banner year.
Correct.
So if I go down just a little tiny bit further here, and I find what was I looking for? Your caseload, first of all, a wonderful report, Jeff. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
I'm a absolute believer in virtual meetings. I really, truly am. However, in your case, in your topic or on your topic, and virtual does work, I get it, but I see the absolute importance for in-person. I mean, flat out, plain and simple, amen, the importance for in-person. I really don't know, I don't know your topic here, I don't. It's mind-blowing, it's baffling me that we have those numbers, that those costs, call them whatever we want to, so I thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Anybody got anything else? If not, we thank you very much, Jeff. Very good report.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Jeff.
Commissioner.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks.
All right, I'll move on to my next request. I have 3 personnel requests. The replacing of 2 positions and requesting the approval of hiring a temporary worker. The first position is a retirement that is going to happen July 31st, and this is an individual who licenses foster homes, adoption guardianship homes, and relative search. It's one of 2 positions that does this work in child protection and children's mental health. Foster care licensing is important, orientating, recruiting, making sure we have enough homes available to meet the needs of our kids who are in placement. Continues to grow. We know our placements continue to be high, as well as our staff have done a great job in placing with relatives, which takes more time. The second position is a case aide, and we're pleased to say, well, we're not pleased to say, but we're pleased to say we will still have contact with this person. They're actually moving on to the state to play a support role in one of our programs. So she's done a great job and been here for a long time and will be missed, but we are keeping her cell phone handy to call for support. But they do relative search as well, SSIS mentoring, 4E collaboration with child support, financial to social workers, as well as helps with supervised visits, and helps staff with time entry and some of those things that ensure we have accurate billing and meeting all the state and federal requirements. So I'll maybe just stop at those two positions and see if there's questions.
Anybody have any questions on that?
Mr. Chair, I'm going to ask Brad a question, if you don't mind. And that question's going to be, I get it. We're losing somebody through retirement. We're losing someone through resignation. Can we absorb those positions without hiring?
Good question. Unfortunately, our caseloads have not decreased. We still have the same amount, if not more work. As child protection and children's mental health and the requirements continue to grow and expand. And so these are two positions that are still needed.
Okay. Thank you, Brad.
Anything else? If not, you can move on, Brad.
And then I'll just mention, ask about hiring a temporary worker. We are having an extended family medical leave, unexpected. And along with the case aide that's leaving in the children's area, we have an opportunity to have an intern who has been with us work as a temporary staff for about 12 weeks while this person is on family medical leave. Generally, we don't have this opportunity and staff have to pick up the pieces. But given the fact that we're going to be down 2 staff shortly and what's going on with child protection assessments, we'd like to take this opportunity to maintain that temporary worker. Part of that salary will be paid for through Sourcewell till the end of May because we are using the internship program. So part of that salary will be used for that. The person who's going to be out is a child protection assessment and investigator. And again, that's a critical function that we have to maintain and want to ensure the safety of our kids. So it's hard to shift work to cover both of those positions who are going to be out.
Okay, could I keep
Make
Commissioner?
a motion to approve.
I'll second for more discussion.
Okay, we got a motion by Commissioner Lemire, seconded by Commissioner Wincher. Commissioner Wincher?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On this temporary child protection assessment worker, and whether this other person that's out on medical leave comes back tomorrow, 2 weeks, again, hopefully everything goes well, they do come back. Once this person comes back, and hopefully they do, then this person then will no longer be employed here at the county, so that's we'll make sure they know that and that.
Yep, we had a conversation with them and they understand that this is, well, this person's on family medical leave.
Okay, any other questions? Not all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. I think I'm moving on to public health report.
Yes.
The first request is to approve a new establishment license contingent on state plumbing inspection report and a Minnesota Department of Health pool opening inspection. And this is for Hardy's Lake, a new RV resort that's going to be developed. And so we would not send them their license until they have both of those from the state approved.
I'll make a motion to approve, Mr. Chair.
We got a second?
Second.
Got a motion by Commissioner Lemire, seconded by Commissioner Jelinski. Any further discussions? Not all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. The second food, beverage, and lodging request is to approve a 2021 seasonal license for Dairy Treat in Little Falls and a new owner license for Patriots Cafe, formerly Kips in Swanville.
Can I get a motion on that?
So moved, Mr.
Got a motion
Second.
by Commissioner Blaine, seconded by Commissioner Lemire. Any further discussion? Not all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. And then I have a public health social services request. I'm going to ask Amy to come up here because I'm certain there will be technical questions that only she can answer. At planning, we talked about an opportunity for our staff to have the availability to text clients. And we know that texting is an important feature these days for everybody, and we have a number of clients who do not have access or do not even set up voicemail boxes anymore. So we are asking for a capital request to approve Tango software that integrates into our Jabber software at a cost of $2,857.14 for the software install and training. And then there will be an annual cost of $100 per staff. I'm asking for approval today, even though we are doing a trial version of this because we want to make sure it works. But we know the work that IT has to do to set up this software, that if it works well, we want to continue to move forward. If it doesn't work well, we will not move forward, and we'll continue to collaborate with Amy on that. IT in our office has talked a number of times about texting software, and we've just never found a solution that's been beneficial. Staff have been piecing together options for communicating with clients besides using voice. We know calling, leaving messages, or calling and unable to leave messages becomes challenging, and some clients like to text more so than talk. This is a software that is HIPAA and data practices approved. It creates consistency across the agencies in how we communicate with our clients, which I think is important. We know we give staff cell phone stipend. However, we want to create boundaries, and so staff aren't always willing to give clients the cell phone number because, again, they will communicate with them at all hours of the day and night if they have something that is needed. This will actually work from our office phone, so that, again, the staff would only have to give clients one number, and they can text from their computer. They can download the app and text from their app. So and again, it's another program that staff don't have to learn, but works with one that we already have within our agency. Social services would pay for this through a capital request. It may at some point be eligible for some of that ARE or AR or whatever funding, but the American Recovery Act. But we also know we received some CARES funding last year, which is part of our fund balance. And so would like to move forward on this software. And I don't know if Amy has any other technical information to provide or.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to move on this.
Okay, we got a
Second.
motion by Commissioner Jelinski, seconded by Commissioner Lemire. Any further discussions?
Mr. Chair, at the very, very least, and I mean at the very, very least, I think this is a true security issue, and that is truly why I'm supporting this.
So when they call, Mr. Chair, I want to understand how this works. So they'll call the landline. They'll be able to leave a text message there. Is there access through their cell phone then to that text message? Or not? Do they have to?
You can talk to technical.
Yeah, he was looking at you.
I'm not sure I'm understanding your question, but if you as a client of one of the social workers wants to text me as a social worker, you can just pick up your normal cell phone, text my work number.
Yep, which is
And
the
just type it
landline,
in.
right?
Yep. And then just text it over to me, and I will receive your text message on my computer, or if I have the app as a
On your
social
cell
worker. On my cell phone, I can receive it.
Perfect. Thank you.
But it will still look like their office number, so.
Yeah.
And that's the important
They
part.
will not have the personal phone number of an individual,
Correct.
yeah. Thank you.
And just one other comment, if this is approved and there's other departments that want to use this software, that I know they have client-facing activities as well, we would open it to them. We'll have to see how the demo goes, but like I said, we want to make sure this works, because it is an investment, and we're glad that they're able to provide that demo for us.
Okay, Commissioner Blaine?
So, upfront cost of $2,857, and then the subsequent cost is $100 per user. I'm assuming that's per employee per year going forward. So, Brad, any idea, guesstimates, number of employees that would engage in this?
You know, I don't know, we have employees of all ages. So some are more adept at texting and technology and appreciate that mode of communication where others may not. And we want to make sure that staff use it because it is an investment for staff. So, but it gives us that ability to create that policy, an ability to text clients. So if I wouldn't be fair to give you a number today to say it's going to be 20 staff or 120 staff. But we only have a certain number of staff who are client facing, both on the social services and public health side, and those will be the ones who are using it. For sure, I know our WIC clinic would benefit from this. Currently, they do have a cell phone that they just use for texting, and that we would eliminate that cell phone and would only go to texting through this software.
So you're confident the number of potential users within your staff will be great enough to justify spending the $2,800 upfront just to install the software?
Yeah, I do believe so, because clients prefer texting a lot of the time, especially the younger clients. But again, Commissioner, that's part of the reason why doing the demo, we want to see how many people are going to use it as well. Because I think that is there's kind of that critical mass we have to make sure we have.
So, if I may, Mr. Chair, so in purchasing that software, even though we're running a demo, if the $2,800 plus cost, if we choose not to go forward with this, will be money that we've spent that we won't get back.
It will be money we did not spend because we do not have to spend it till we do the demo and make sure we like the software. So we would not pay for it at all if through the demo we find staff don't feel it's user-friendly or help with the work that we do.
So in other words, we're able to do a demo of this product at no cost to give us the idea whether or not this will fulfill our needs before we have to sign a check.
Correct.
Thank you.
And the reason I'm getting the approval is because her staff, Amy's staff, still has to do some significant work to get it set up so that it is user-friendly. So that's why asking for approval, even though we're not paying a dime, for at least 30 days, making sure that this works well for our staff.
I like that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, do we have a number, okay, let's say it staff doesn't want to use it, so let's say there's only 5 staff members that want to use it, then are we going to say, you know what, it's not worth it? But how about, for 10 staff, are you putting a number out there? Well, where are we going to draw the line that we may not use this?
Good question, Commissioner. No, I don't have a number in my head, but I think that's a conversation Amy and I and our managers would have to have, because you do have to have the critical mass to make sure it's worth IT's time to maintain and support the software ongoing, as well as the staff who are using it at $100 a month. So I don't have a number in my head, but I know it has to be more than 5.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, may I just give a brief update on COVID? I didn't put on the agenda, but I thought I'd just give a brief update if I may. The total number of cases to date are 4,125, with 146 of those in the past 14 days. We were seeing a trend down into the mid-30s. We are seeing a little trend up, but now it's kind of held. It creates a case rate of 44.1. We have about a 43% vaccinated rate in Morrison County, with 79% vaccinated in the 65-plus population. I'm pleased to say Carmen and Emily met with Dr. McNamara yesterday and did a video which is encouraging our community to get vaccinated, so we're hoping that'll be out this week. So really appreciate Dr. McNamara doing that on behalf of CHI and our Public Health Advisory Committee. We are continuing to meet with the schools on a weekly basis. They are all still in session and all trying to hold it together for the last parts of the year. I know currently in Little Falls, it seems like the numbers are higher now. Seems like the other communities are now trending down and Little Falls is trending up, so it just seems like it's kind of moving around the county, unfortunately. But I know our schools are ready for summer, and so that's where we're at today with COVID-19. We are continuing to do a few first shots clinics here. Although tomorrow it's only second shots because of a training that's going on here, so we do have some first shots left. I know we are struggling filling first shot clinics. We did do about 200 shots last Wednesday, a third of those being second shots, 2/3 of those being first shots. Planning to have some conversations with CHI about whether or not we could help support vaccinating the younger kids now. It sounds like next week the 12 to 16-year-olds will be approved for the Pfizer vaccine if things go according to plan. The challenge is that's the 2-shot vaccine, so it's hard to get to them probably this school year. But we'll see what we can do to maybe increase our vaccinated rates among our kids. So it's still evolving. I know still some challenges ahead, but with the summer weather, the warmer weather certainly helps, I think, the mood and and feeling a little safer, so.
Mr. Chair, Brad, if I may, are we gonna be getting the available of the Johnson & Johnson? Is that, because I've had a few people say, well, I'm not taking it unless I get the Johnson & Johnson, whatever it is. Also, again, I don't know, whether it's 12 years or under, again, this is just an opinion. If people decide to get the shot, I think it's fair that they should. If they don't want it, I think that's another pulpit, but I think just keeping it out there. When I say the Johnson & Johnson, if you can answer that question.
Yeah, we're not alone. We would love the Johnson & Johnson. We have not had availability to get Johnson & Johnson. And of course, they had a couple issues with that, so it really diminished the capacity for that particular vaccine, but I know it's back out in the market and they're using it. That if we were to do something with the schools on a larger scale, we'd hope to get that, but again, that particular vaccine, we are certainly competing with others who want to just do the 1 shot and be done and not have to worry about getting people back and rescheduling or scheduling a second shot, so.
Sounds good. Any other questions? Otherwise, thank you, Brad.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Have a good day,
Brad.
Commissioners.
Do we want to take a 5-minute break, guys, or? No? Yeah, let's take a 5-minute break. We'll continue on.
Right before Amy, perfect.
I suppose I could.
Did you get it, Deb?
Hold on, wait for it. Try.
Real expensive, nasty,
Yeah, I don't mess around.
N90
Here you go.
Well, I know, but it's not exactly sharing on the screen. Oh. Oh, there.
Good job.
I gotta hit mute. I opened it up, a draft resolution. No, that was. Able to think right now. You sent them to me, I thought I opened both, but maybe it didn't. Draft. Yeah, kinda is what it is, that's how this rolls, yeah. Okay, I have them both open. Yes. Yep. And I've got both of them open. First exam. Yeah, she's coming in at noon. She's got, her daycare's closed with COVID things again. Just set it right up here on this pile. Is what I did. Okay, thanks. Sorry. Can't think.
this way, you're the first one there. If it's empty, you have to make some.
Make it.
Well, now the party starts.
Pardon me?
Now the party starts. The party starts now.
Yeah, exactly. See if they're,
Yeah, Randy, I can't win no matter what happens in that spot.
Oh, I know. I'd say, I'd just tell Mike, go out down the township road. Don't like it.
Well, and I also don't see why we can't chloride from that corner by Rod's the other way and not by Mike's. I mean, that can happen too. All you gotta do is do it. You know, then I can make them both happy.
Well, you'll never make them happy.
Well,
It's
and-
kinda- I know what you're saying.
But there's an intersection there, you know what I mean? So-
Well, it's that township
So you can
road.
kind of talk about it from that
I
point.
told Mike to go down I call it Skunk Road, that's a minimum maintenance, go out that way then.
Somebody had a gate on that. Somebody
Really?
called about a gate that was there or something on that maintenance road.
The township maybe, 'cause
It had to
flooded.
be, it had to be the township on the other end.
Oh,
But I don't know who put the gate up.
Where are we at? Where are we at? I'm muted. I'm unmuting.
The outhouses?
Who are we? Is it Amy?
Let me know when you're ready, Jen. No, you just let me know when you're ready.
Big one, too. Cannibal, this big.
Okay, we'll call this meeting back to order. Land Service Report.
They're already over there.
Good morning, Amy.
Good morning, Miss Amy.
I have an exciting variety of things for you today. The first one is to review and approve the 2020 County Feedlot Officer Annual Report. This is a requirement of our MPCA delegation agreement that we essentially summarize the past year as far as our feedlot activity and adherence to our delegation agreement. The report was included in your packet, and really for this last year, we did what we needed to do to adhere to our delegation agreement. We had quite a span of time where we did not have a feedlot officer, but we did meet our minimum inspection requirements. Nothing more, nothing less, really. So that's what we're reporting on to the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency for 2020. And so I just need approval of that, and then we can get that sent off to the MPCA.
Make a motion to approve,
Have a
Mr. Chair.
motion by Commissioner Lemire, seconded by Commissioner Blaine. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
All right, thank you. Next item I have is circling back on a discussion that we had at a previous planning session regarding our aquatic invasive species program and a request that we had gotten from the Fish Trap Lake Owners Association for the funding of a waterless cleaning station at the public landing or public boat landing for them. We had some discussion that we would like to pilot one of these units and have that be outside of the grant program, since we do have a fund balance in our AIS account. And so in front of you, also in your packet, was the agreement that we had put together and had our county attorney review. I do have one small change to that in item B. We, upon mutual agreement with the Fish Trap Lake Owners Association, item B now reads, use data shall be made available to Morrison County as requested for at least the first 5 years of operation or as agreed upon by both parties. Since that software, it's an annual expense to have that software, and at some point, I think we will decide that we have enough use data, and so we didn't want them to have to obligate and to keep up that software expense in perpetuity. So we modified that language.
Okay, could I get a motion on that?
Make a motion to approve, Mr.
Got a
Chair.
motion by Commissioner Lemire, seconded by
Second for more discussion.
Commissioner Wincher. More discussion? Commissioner Wincher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to clarify, and again, it's under item A, that Fish Trap will be the one that owns this.
Yes.
And they'll be doing all the maintaining, so the county's
Yes.
hands will be washed.
Yes, so essentially, what this agreement will do is the money will go to the Fish Trap Lake Owners Association, and they will purchase the unit. We will not be purchasing the unit or have any role in the ownership.
Commissioner Lemire.
Amy, if you could just give a brief description on where this money comes from, the grant money, and what it can be used for, please.
Yes, so the aquatic invasive species funding comes from the state, and that, the funding is, all counties receive it, and the funding amount is based on the number of boat landings in each county and the number of parking spaces within each of those boat landings. So it's a formula that's done. And then that money is given or handed down to the counties for an aquatic invasive species program. It's up to the county to develop the plan as far as how the county's going to approach aquatic invasive species and the prevention of them and all of that. And so one of the items that we have is an annual grant program where we grant lake associations and lake improvement districts. And so they're eligible to request funding. But then we also have additional projects that we do on the county level. And this is one that we have wanted to pilot for quite some time. And we have had several conversations with Fish Trap Lake Owners Association over the years in citing one of these. And this will help us determine whether or not additional units like this would make sense in the county.
Thank you.
Anybody else got any question? I seen two of these units up by Mille Lacs. They were kind of in a parking lot area. I presume they were gonna put them somewhere, but they looked pretty impressive. I
Yeah.
could see where somebody would drive up to them with their boat and use the facility possibly.
We did have the manufacturer of these, he brought a unit to us, so Galen and I did have an opportunity to see an actual unit and all of that, and they are very nice looking.
So, okay, we have a motion, second. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, thank you. And the last item I have is a request for approval of the abstract of abatements. This was also in your packet. We have two of them, and these are both cleaning up a couple of errors and to the tax roll.
I'll move on this, Mr.
We
Chair.
got a motion by Commissioner Jelinski, seconded by Commissioner Lemire. Any further discussion? Not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, thank you, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Amy.
Thank you, Amy.
Okay, next we have motor vehicle. Chelsea? Good morning.
Good morning, Chelsea.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
This morning I have a request under motor vehicle. This request is to approve our part-time staff member currently, who is at 30 hours per week in the DMV, to go full-time to 40 hours per week. This increase in staffing is a temporary timeframe for May through December of this year, a total of 8 months. The total amount difference in the budget would be an estimate of $6,657.28. That's a total of what we have in the packet of the $6,257.28 for salary, plus an estimate for $400 for benefits. This proposal would be to utilize the net funds to offset this proposed cost, as it's not budgeted in this year. As you can see in our report that's attached, overall in the first quarter, as shown, there is a revenue increase of a total of $28,811.98.
Could I get a motion on this?
I'll move on it for more discussion.
Commissioner Zelinski made a motion, seconded by Commissioner Wincher. More discussion.
Mr. Chair, if I may?
Yes.
Chelsea, the last time that we discussed this, and forgive me if I'm wrong, I believe was at our planning meeting. And help me, if you will. We talked about the request at that point in time, and if I remember and if I'm understanding this correctly, the want, the need, was due to driver's licenses. If I'm understanding the other communication that I received recently, and I believe, help me out, Ms. Gruber, did you also send that out? And regarding driver's licenses not needing to be updated or completed until a later date?
The extension from the Department of Homeland Security for the Real ID deadline went from October to 2022, and I can't remember what month.
2023,
2023.
May 3rd of
May.
2023.
For that. If all that is in place, I'm going to have a hard time supporting this, just for the record.
Sure. If I could, Mr. Chair, follow up with that. So it's a nice visual to see what happens with communication with the state and the county level. As at planning session Tuesday morning last week, we had the deadline of October 1st of 2021. And now, with late communication last Tuesday, sent out by the state, the due date is May 3rd of 2023. Our increased volume is not only with driver's license and the deadline, but also motor vehicle DNR. We know that there are surrounding deputy registrar offices that are closed to the public by appointment only, or maybe very, very limited for traffic flow. And our office is different, where we have our office open with the priority for appointments for driver's license, for Real ID and enhanced. This, yes, does give the opportunity for the individuals who want the Real ID and enhanced time, which is great, because now they've really had the opportunity from 2019 all the way now through 2023 beginning to get that Real ID or an enhanced if they don't have a passport, if they're planning to travel. With this extension, my thoughts with the state is that I'm not sure if our traffic is going to slow down, because this may look different in deputy registrar offices where they may continue to do appointment only and not open up the doors. So we may continue to have that traffic in our office because we are open, and because you get a tab renewal notice, or you want to transfer a title and you don't want to make an appointment and you want to just walk in and have same-day service because the individual who you're selling a vehicle to is with you that day. And so you're willing to wait 30, 45 minutes in our office to get that transaction complete. I think it's been a great oversight. The last year, just the unknowing of what COVID-19 impacts are But I think that even with this extension with driver's license, we're going to continue to see revenue increase.
Commissioner Winter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Normally, I'm pretty tight when it comes to spending money, especially for other employees. I know I stick my head in the DMV once in a while, and they're just hopping down there. It's one of the few departments that I see that they don't have any breaks. I was even shaming some of the staff to get their breaks because they're just going continuously. Whether it's the Real ID, I just see that this department is also a moneymaker. I like to see that. You know, again, it can't have a county as a moneymaker, but this one is that. And I just feel that if we more would go around each department and you see what they're doing, this department, you say, they're just, yeah, they're busting at the seams with people coming in there. But again, I'm one that pushes to keep this open. We're getting a lot of people that I'll get at least a phone call a week about our DMV. Oh, it's so nice that they can come in without an appointment. And I've asked the question too, I've asked county commissioners in other counties why they're not opening, and you know, you kind of get this here answer. But I think it's in this case, I think this is something that, hey, if it doesn't work out after the end of December, then let's move on. But I think this is something that we should do, and I'll be voting for it.
Anybody else have any questions on this? Commissioner Blaine.
So when we look at what's happened in this office, and I think we found out throughout COVID a year ago that when it comes to physical foot traffic into the courthouse here, that probably the greatest percentage of those people that come to the courthouse are going to access this office. And when I look at the numbers here today, that at the conclusion of the first quarter of this year, we're averaging almost $10,000 above budget, in other words, in revenue that we're taking in, and we're questioning whether or not we should spend $6,000 to continue to allow this kind of revenue stream into the county. To me, this is almost like one of the biggest no-brainers there is out there, especially in the sense when we look at it, as Commissioner Wincher so correctly pointed out, you know, it's one of the few offices, if at all, in county government where we have actually the opportunity to run this like a business and generate revenue. We're looking at this in a temporary, you know, we're actually putting a sunset on this at the end so we can see how this goes for the remaining 8 months of the year. But my point with this is more about the response to the public, what we're doing, because like Commissioner Wincher, I have contact with constituents and residents of the county who aren't constituents of mine, who reference that department and the work that goes on in that department and the importance of that and timing, but also on the sense that if we show the public that we can respond in a timely manner within that office, regardless of what other counties do, whether they stay with appointment only or not, we're sending a message out that Morrison County is open for business and we value them coming to Morrison County and giving us the opportunity to serve them. So to me, this is, when, you know, in looking at this from the business sense, is almost a no-brainer. The other part of this too, I also want to relay the fact that
over the past year or so, the decisions that have been made by leadership, meaning Denise and Ms. Robinson, about addressing staffing needs for that office to serve the public. In other words, reducing the amount of time that a number of people that could be off on a certain day. So in other words, to keep as many staff people there to serve the public throughout this transition from the debacle of Minlars and what we're going into now. And so looking forward, being able to give at least some hope or opportunity to the staff members that work in that department, that leadership here recognizes the sacrifices that they've made for the benefit of the taxpayers and the people of the county and the surrounding area. So, thank you, Mr. Chair.
I guess I'd like to concur with what Commissioner Blaine says quite a bit of. I know at one time we hesitated because of the fact you brought us numbers now showing how we're making a profit here. And because when I go up there, I know it's busy. I've been in there and I know it's busy. But there was also a time when we asked how much public money should we stick in that when it can be run by private organizations. But I think that our constituents, it's part of our courthouse, regardless of how it can be private or it's public. And it's part of our courthouse and people come. But I think that this is a fair amount to ask for the next 8 months. It gives us the opportunity to see if we can continue on that. I agree with Commissioner Blaine. In the business world, this is a great opportunity to draw people here. We spend a lot of money to draw businesses to town, and here's an opportunity. If people are coming out of town to come here, the odds are they're going to spend some money here. And that's what most businesses do to draw people. So I thank you for bringing forth the numbers to show that this is a feasible option right now. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Next on the agenda, first, thank you for that. Next under the agenda, I have a resolution that is not in the board packet that I would like to bring to your attention. This resolution is for sponsoring the Eastern Morrison County Four-Wheeler Club. So we had this resolution approved back in 2020, on September 8th of 2020, and it was brought to my attention that the state would like the very last paragraph before passed to add after the state fiscal year 2021. They want the additional through state fiscal year 2022, and I believe that is because their fiscal years run from July 1st through June 30th. So I just received the grant application the end of last week, and so I would ask for approval for a revised with adding the through state fiscal year 2022.
So move, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Lemire, seconded by Commissioner Jelinski. Any further discussion? Not all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, I have a request for approval for the St. Joseph Catholic Church to hold the raffle and bingo on November 7th of this year and March 6th of 2022 at the St. Joseph Parish Hall.
Can I get a motion on that?
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Wincher, seconded by Commissioner Blaine. Any further discussion? Not all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
And last but not least, I have a request to pay the bills.
Could I get a motion to pay the warrants?
So move.
Got a motion by Commissioner Lemire, seconded by Commissioner Jelinski. This is roll call. Commissioner Lemire.
Aye.
Commissioner Wincher. Aye. Commissioner Jelinski.
Aye.
Commissioner Blaine.
Aye.
And aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chelsea.
Thank you, Chelsea.
Next, we have, let me see, we did the.
Public Works.
Public Works report.
Let's see, where's it?
We're at his building Friday.
I think landfill is what.
Good morning,
Morning, Steve.
Mr. Chairman,
Morning,
members of the
Steve.
board. Just one item for your consideration today. The department has received an application for a 2021 annual solid waste haulers license from Doucette's Landscaping and Contracting. That application has been reviewed by the department and found to be in compliance with the ordinance. And so we are recommending that the board would authorize a 2021 solid waste haulers license to them.
So move, Mr. Chair.
Motion by Commissioner Lemire, seconded by Commissioner Wincher. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Steve, is the meeting out at landfill Friday?
Yes, I think we should be able to have it at the landfill,
Okay,
and we should.
thank you.
Mr. Bukowski? Are you going to stick around?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Send us an email to remind us about T-SWAC.
Yes, I can probably text you if you don't mind.
Okay, next we have administrators report.
All right, Mr. Chair, I have a couple of things for consideration. First, if you don't mind, I want to go to the second one. To consider setting a public hearing to gather input regarding the potential county recorder appointment, and then we'll address the interim appointment if you don't mind. So as kind of part of my position, I offered you options for moving forward with the county recorder position because we're going to lose Eileen after her great service to the county. And so we wish her the best, but as with any vacancy, different opportunities are looked at on what and how we can do business. And so presenting you with those is what we talked in detail about last week, but you were given those options to noodle over for a number of weeks. And just a next step, if you want consideration of that appointment concept, would be to set public hearings based upon what's laid out in statute. So that's kind of up for consideration now. And I need direction on how you would like to move forward.
Okay, thank you. Can I get a motion for that?
Is this a motion? I don't know, it is a motion.
I need a motion to consider a public hearing to gather public input on county recorder appointment. Does anybody want to make a motion on this, or?
For a resolution. I'll make a motion for further discussion.
Okay, got a motion by Commissioner Lemire, second by Commissioner Jelinski. Any further discussion?
I'm going to be voting against this resolution because I feel that the position should remain elected by the people. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay,
And, Mr. Chair, this is for, if it doesn't pass, but we still have to appointment, who do we designate for the appointment? Is that something that's a recommendation? So could I have you, Mr. Chair, as the appointment? I'm just throwing that out there.
Well, at this point in time, and that was that first resolution, that's why I was kind of wanted to get a handle on this, is what we do. But at this point in time, I mean, it's been handled in a number of different ways when there's been a vacancy in an elected office. Back in 2005, for example, that's how I got hired, I was hired for an elected office. I filled out an application, the position was advertised, and I was hired and then filled a vacancy of an elected term. In this instance, I don't think there's any doubt that we have somebody internal that would be qualified and that would fill those shoes and be able to, for an interim basis, fill that vacancy, regardless if the position ends up appointed or elected. So that would be the recommendation that's coming forward.
I guess in my own opinion, we talk about saving money every time somebody asks for an appointment here for hiring somebody. And I think that this is one of the areas that we have the opportunity to do that, but we also have the opportunity to let the public decide, or at least talk to us about the fact, do they want this elected, or do they want it to be appointed? And so I guess that's where I stand on this. I'd like to see a public hearing to see what the public wants to do on this subject.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if I may, We had a subcommittee dealing with theories and thoughts of what to do with this position. And that subcommittee was Commissioner Wincher, Commissioner Blaine, Ms. Gruber, and I honest to goodness, I don't have any idea who else is on it. I'm wondering, is the complication, that's the wrong word, I'm sure I just murdered it, right? The
Consensus?
consensus of the form that you showed us the other day with the 4 different options, is that what happened? Is that what the end result was of the subcommittee? Or would either one of the commissioners that were on that subcommittee, I'm just asking the question, you're on the subcommittee, what happened at it? We haven't talked about it, we haven't discussed it.
Commissioner Blaine?
If I may?
Well, I don't want to step in front of my colleague from Royalton, but in answer to your question, Commissioner Jelinski, the document with the 4 options was not a culmination of work done by Commissioner Wincher or I. We didn't come up with that document. That was the document that was presented to us when we met to discuss this. So that is not, those options were not, were not a fruit from this commissioner. And I'll let my colleague who served with me in that meeting, if you have any comments, Commissioner Wincher, on that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So again, I'll agree to disagree. There was one that I did put on there, the 4th option. That was my request to maybe have our county auditor be part of that, if she would be interested in taking over the position, if you can recall that. Otherwise, no, I agree with Commissioner Blaine. The other 3 were giving the information to us. I guess, all that being said, and again, maybe I'm going to step back on Commissioner Blaine. Where did this information come? Who of us board gave the information to start this process? I guess that's the question, because I know I never asked our administrator to say, hey, could you give us some options on this? I don't know if Commissioner Blaine and the other commissioners. So then once this came to me, then I go, well, let's look at a 4th position or whatever it may be. But if someone can answer that question, I'd appreciate it.
Didn't we talk back, we're going back quite a while now, when we knew that this area would be open, didn't we talk about the savings and stuff that could be at this time in that area? And I think that's when we formed the committee to talk about. I don't know if I'm wrong there or not, but I think that's where we had talked about, here's an opportunity to save some money. Does it need to be an elected position? We've talked about this elected position when it was Chelsea's office and this one. That goes back almost 2 years we talked about that. So I don't know, in the committee what you talked about, but I presume that Deb presented something for a discussion item. But I don't know. Do you
Mr. Chair, if I could, when Eileen announced her retirement, it was at a planning session, and I came back, I don't know, a number of weeks after, I can't recall, and asked, what would you guys like to do? What kind of dive do you want to do in this? And I had, at the time, I believe, got direction of bring us our options. Those are the options that exist. Anytime we have a vacancy, we look at options. You've directed that time and time again. What can we do as an organization? I think you've stressed numerous times, and aligns with our strategic planning, that we want to focus on customer service, and we want to make sure that we do that well. And so if options exist that could look different, being aware of those is what you've asked for in numerous situations. And so I guess I went on the assumption that that's what you'd want to see. What are valid options that exist under the current authority that we have as an organization and you as a county board. And so that's what that was. The committee was really about, are these valid options? What else do you want to see? Is it presented in a way that's understandable? That's what I brought to you. I don't make that decision. You guys get to make that decision, but I do think it's appropriate to look at what could exist, because you do in many instances, and you've asked that of departments time and again, which I think is important, and I appreciate that, because I think that allows us to be able to really work hard to try to find what potential solutions exist. And so, as Commissioner Wincher said, the three that I could think of at the time, knowing what I know, were the three that were presented, and then Commissioner Wincher brought forward, isn't there a fourth? And he's absolutely correct, and so I added a fourth. But again, just options for you to consider. You guys get to make that decision, and I'll execute whatever it is that you decide.
Thanks, Deb. It kind of answers my question, but it didn't answer, my question, again, when this came about, and again, I have two ex-state representatives here, would someone from this board had a request that our state rep or our state senator would have to request this? And that's my point. Could he do this all on his own and say, hey, you know what, we have, it's designated, and correct me if I'm wrong, gentlemen, it's designated not statewide, just for Morrison County. So someone, I think, had to say, you know what, Representative, bring this forward. And I'm not for sure on that question, so.
Mr. Chair, back in 2017, if you recall, the platform for AMC, it was a big discussion every year about the appointment of the row offices, about the recorder, the auditor, and the treasurer positions. So it was up for debate, and many counties on an individual basis were requesting that for the ability to be able to structure their organizations however they deemed necessary. In 2017, it was brought forward, and Representative Kresha will attest to that, and we've talked since. He did that unbeknownst to us, knowing that it was a topic of conversation throughout the state. And so that's how that specific legislation came about. But as you also recall, that topic continued to swirl and debate. And the next year, there was statewide legislation because of the interest across the state to allow for that opportunity across the state of Minnesota and put in your control as a county board the ability to appoint if it fits the organization. And so if you recall, it's migrated quite a bit. It's been a hot topic for many years. And then finally, the state of Minnesota, the legislators worked, and it was really a combination of AMC and MACO, the county association organization, coming to an agreement that if it's the right thing for a particular county, now the county boards have authority to make those decisions and to move forward with that. So that's kind of the history of that. So it is a common topic when there's a vacancy in an elected office, and so it's one that certainly seems appropriate to talk about, but again, you get to make the decision about how you'd want to move forward with it.
May I respond?
Yes.
So Commissioner Wincher, referencing Commissioner Lemire and I as former state legislators, I'm trying to get my arms around what I seem is some kind of a disconnect here, because we have legislation that was authored and passed and put into statute that is specific to Morrison County. It's specific to Morrison County, and it was moved by the legislator from Morrison County, but yet we're hearing that it was not known to anyone here. And I really struggle with that, because in my 3 terms in St. Paul, never do I ever remember myself or another legislator who would move legislation that would affect the people of the district, or in this case, a governing body, meaning county government, and never have the discussion with them that he was doing that. So my question was going to be going back to you, because obviously this took place before I had the pleasure of having a seat at this board. Was Was it the members of the county board who made the request to Representative Creasha to draft this language and then not just draft the language and author a bill, but then push it to the point that it became state law? Commissioner Wincher, was it this board?
Again, it wasn't me. Now, whether it was someone else from the county, I don't know, Commissioner Blaine. But definitely, it was a discussion about other, I mean, like our administrator did say, there was discussion, but I myself personally, I never requested one time, and it was even a shock to our recorder at the time, and again, we have her here, she didn't even know about it either, so it was kind of like, who is the one, and that was my that was my point. Who requested this, for this legislator to bring this up? And again, unless late Swenson, maybe it was him, but otherwise, I have no idea who did it.
Mr. Chair, if I could, I followed up with Creasha right away when that happened, and it wasn't an act that was required of you. And what he had indicated to me, it's one that just gives you an opportunity to discuss it and have that authority, but it's authority you can choose to execute or authority you don't have to execute. And so, unbeknownst to all of us, that occurred. But regardless of that, it's just an authority for you. It wasn't a required action of you. So I think that was maybe why. I mean, you can talk to Mr. Creasha himself. It's certainly the conversations that I had back then. Given it was a topic that was there, it was one of those, well, here's the authority, take it or leave it kind of thing. It didn't require any type of change. And so, again, neither here nor there, the 2019 legislation also authorized you to be able to have that authority. So it was kind of a pendulum that was swinging in terms of putting that authority, if you so choose, in the hands of a county board, that you can make those decisions and advance that.
And I feel back at that time, I remember some discussions that we had on that, but I'm not going to elaborate on those today because there were reasons for things that we were looking at. So I do remember that discussion. But does anybody got anything else to add to this?
Mr. Chair, if I may, can we repeat exactly what our, I believe I made it, but exactly what the motion is?
Consider setting a public hearing to gather public input on potential county record appointment. So I have a question. If this would get turned down, then we just automatically go and leave it as an elected thing, right? Okay.
Yes, because this would be a process that you'd need to have in order to advance that concept. And so if it doesn't advance, that would be the assumption, and that's what I would go with.
Okay.
Well, Mr. Chair, I guess my thought on this was we're kind of setting the cart before the horse here, in the sense that the thought of gathering public input on this, I was thinking maybe we should have had a vote or more discussion on whether or not we want to execute on one of these options instead of having public input.
Okay.
Well, Mr. Chair, by default, that kind of does this. Like, if you're not going to want to set a public hearing, or if you're not going to set a public hearing, that's the first step in being able to consider, I think it was options 2, 3, and 4. If you want to advance some form of discussion when it comes to appointment, the first step in doing so would be setting public hearings. So I guess neither here nor there, that was just the thought.
Or the thought could be that we could have the discussion and take a vote, and if the vote is that this position will be an appointed position, then I think the discussion would be whether or not we would want to entertain the opportunity to gather public input on it. Or am I wrong? Commissioner Lemire, you're looking at me, am I wrong? I've been wrong already on this discussion.
The statute on this, if you choose to go down the road of appointed, if you choose to go down that road, you have to have a public hearing. So this would set that in motion. If you feel that you want to go to the appointed position, or if you just want to gather input because you don't know what you want to do, then you would set a public hearing and then hear what the people say and then make your decision at that point. If you're dead set on keeping it elected, then it wouldn't make sense to pass this resolution, to have a public hearing.
And Mr. Chair, I appreciate that, Commissioner Lemire, or, when you added the or, if you wanted to. And that's how I'm looking at this, is the or, to have the public input, to hear what the public input is. I'm not suggesting for a second appointment. I am suggesting public hearing. And I believe that's what I heard Commissioner Wilson. Mr. Chair, I believe that's what I heard from you. Anyway, that's all I've got.
Yeah, well, that's all I'm asking. I'd like the public to tell me, do you want this to be an elected position, or do you want it to be an appointment? I guess that's what I'm looking at this. So I'm looking at this, that if we vote this down, that means that there will not be no public hearing.
That's right.
And
it'll remain elected, yep.
it'll remain elected. Yeah, that's the way I'm looking at this. Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Any more discussion? All in favor of considering setting a public hearing to gather public input on potential county recorder appointments, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I would like a roll call, request a roll call on this one if possible.
Okay, Commissioner Wincher?
Nay.
Commissioner Jelinski?
Aye.
Commissioner Blaine?
Nay.
Commissioner Wilson? Aye. Commissioner Lemire?
Nay.
Okay, it stays appointed.
Perfect. Nope,
Oh, it
elected.
stays
Yep.
elected. Okay.
Stays elected.
All
End of
right.
story.
And the question that I have then for the second action would be to appoint the chief deputy recorder as interim recorder, effective the day that the term would become vacant, which would be May 16th, because Eileen's retirement comes on the 15th. The current recommendation is coming to appoint the chief deputy recorder. As I said, this could be done a number of different ways, but I don't think that I certainly have any qualms about somebody within the office right now being qualified and able to execute that role. And so that's what I'm recommending, to appoint Jenny Sanders as that. Given the fact that it is going to be an elected position and by default a department head, what I would recommend, based upon the only tool I have, and you need to tell me if I should use something different, would be to start at a step 1 of a grade 28, which is what would be recommended. And then once election occurs, if you choose as a county board to set that salary different, by all means, that's what your statutory role is. If you feel different than that, certainly let me know.
Mr. Chair, I'll move on that.
Okay, we got a motion by Commissioner Jelinski, seconded by
I'll second for more discussion.
Commissioner Wincher. Any more discussion?
Lots of more discussion. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So again, just to put this out there, I know the answer already, but if we could clarify. Once we make this appointment, then that appointment person, Jenny, then the election, they would be appointed until election of whatever, 2022, correct?
Yes.
So then, once the election comes up, then the filing would come with that.
Yep.
Okay, any more discussion?
Mr. Chair, I do. So we will have Ms. Sanders as the interim recorder, or as the interim recorder here. There was in this discussion from before, in some of these options, there was the discussion or the thought to eliminate the deputy. And then also to place appointment or direction under the Land Services Director. Are we gonna talk about that at all, or how will this play?
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, go ahead, please.
the decision that was just made was to not hold public hearings, so the only, option left, if we don't hold public hearings to try to move to appointment, would be for the county recorder to remain elected. And that elected option then means that that will be an independent, autonomous department in which is led by an elected office holder. And so there wouldn't be that hierarchy established, or there wouldn't be option 2, 3, and 4 that would exist. And so, no.
So going forward now, then, Ms. Sanders, as, after Ms. Holtberg retires here in a couple weeks, will be our new county recorder by appointment until elected in 2022. So then she will be recognized as a department head within this structure.
Yes, she will serve as the interim recorder from May 16th through, in theory, till she's elected, and then holding office on January 1 of 2023.
And we will have, so then will we have a deputy recorder in that office?
Once she holds office, my suggestion would be that when she would be elected, that whomever is elected on January 1st would be able to, by statute, has that authority to appoint a chief deputy recorder. My suggestion would be, until that time, hold off until we know who's elected and that's appointed, because that's an authority really of an elected office holder. And so come January 1 of 2023, whomever it is that wins an election and is elected, that they would have a chief deputy recorder by statute.
So my only concern is because in a previous meeting with the two ladies, and if they'd like to come forward, they may, but the question is would not having a deputy recorder in place limit the ability for that office to perform those duties in this 18-month, or we're talking about maybe a 16-month interim?
I don't believe so, Mr. Chair. That's something that, when there isn't an actual elected office holder and we're kind of in that limbo time period, the work needs to be done and you have the ability to fill that need. But certainly if I'm wrong, you can identify that, but it's really the elected office holder by statute that has the authority to be able to appoint that. And so lacking that, then it's kind of incumbent upon the county to make sure that those statutory responsibilities are performed.
Ms. Holtberg, will you come forward, please?
Must have happened when she got in. Must have happened when she was
No, I think you're asking, I guess.
Eileen, thank you.
Yes.
So as I recall in previous conversation, the importance of having a deputy was that in case you were called to be out of the office or whatever, that these functions would still take place. And I realize we're talking about a specific window of time here between now and the 22 election. Do you deem this to be manageable by Ms. Sanders and the current staff there, that if there's not a deputy recorder in the office?
Historically, as when Bunny took the position, when Jim Anderson left, and again when Bunny left and I took it, there has always been a chief deputy for the full term. Statutorily, I'd have to go and look. I mean, in my absence, is there a signatory power that needs to be present there, or in the recorder's absence? I'd have to look that up to see exactly how it works, where in the appointed interim, if that would change. In the past, there has always been a chief deputy.
But with your depth of knowledge and experience in that office, if Ms. Sanders was away from the office for a day and there was important documents, as there is every day in that office, to be signed, notarized, executed there. Is it possible that that could take place, let's say, later in the day or the next day effectively, to allow us to run without a chief deputy in this interim situation?
I mean, they are all capable of making the day-to-day decisions. I would say, again, I'd have to look at the statutes to see if that's required or not.
Okay.
Wouldn't the proper, and I don't know this, but wouldn't the proper procedure be when she is appointed to go in there, that she would work with administration if there needed to be a fill in that office in the meantime? That's what you would do?
Mr. Chair, if I could just maybe help Commissioner Blaine out, maybe, we'll get through today and appoint our chief deputy recorder, and then we can dig into the statutes and the what-ifs on the chief deputy issue, and then if we feel that there should be a chief deputy, we'll bring it forward and have a vote on it at that time. That work for you, Commissioner Blaine?
Yeah, please don't misunderstand me. I'm not here advocating that we can't leave the room today unless we have the issue of.
No, I didn't mean that. I hope I didn't
No,
convey that.
of a chief deputy, but, in looking at this issue from a comprehensive standpoint, and we've been there, Commissioner Winter and I've been there from kind of the first meeting about this, that, that became one of the issues of thought on there is, well, we can save money if we get rid of the title of having a chief deputy in that office. And I'm going back to, we have all kinds of opportunities where we can look at supposedly saving money to the county. And it's up to the members of this board to make those decisions. This, for me, was one of those ones where I wasn't willing to look at somehow selling the right to vote by the people of the county for some cost savings in one department. So when I look at this going forward, what I want to do is I want to make sure that when Ms. Holtberg and Ms. Sanders leave here today, that we can be confident that they'll have the tools and the personnel necessary in that department to execute the operations that have taken place there for generations in the past, because we all understand now the importance of all the documents that go through that office and the implications they have in the assessor's office and certainly through the auditor treasurer's office. So that was, I'm not necessarily looking to say we have to have this position here today. I just wanted to make sure that there was a clear understanding between this board and these two ladies what the intent is moving forward.
Commissioner Jelinski.
Mr. Chair, my concern probably more than whether there's a chief deputy or not, right this second is neither here nor there. That department is going to be shy at least one employee.
Mr. Chair, you've already authorized that hiring to take place, so that process is happening right now.
Yeah, they'll have 4.
Just temporarily, yes.
We did that?
The
I
position
missed
was.
that. Sorry.
The position was posted and, yes.
Yeah.
and
Mr. Chair,
closed.
All right.
I think
Sorry.
Ms. Sanders had a comment.
Why don't you come up here, yeah?
Good morning.
The whole topic of cost savings keeps coming up over and over, and I would just like to say, Eileen was given a grade 32 when Bunny left. Now all of a sudden, that grade is going to be dropped down to 28. It's not noted in here about those cost savings at all. Where's that money going?
So there's some more,
I think I maybe know where people are going here. When it was brought up, and again, Eileen, please correct me if I'm wrong, that it was mentioned to you that you were overpaid. Is this the reason why that, again, I don't know where our administrator's coming up. I have no idea what, they're coming at a grade 28 or grade 108. Is that, I'm saying, that's where I think we're coming with this here, is how is this grade coming out there? Is that just, we're pulling, and I know you're not pulling it out of the sky. You have some reasoning for the grade 28, but is that why, is that we feel, or not we, that this position supposedly is overpaid? I guess that was the comment was made last week by Eileen, so.
I'm not sure if I've heard that. I think you're taking it as overpaid. I think there was a potential savings in this department by the number of people that are under Eileen at this time. I think that's what our discussion is, and I appreciate the fact, no matter what department we're talking about, that if there's a savings to the county, that we discuss it. And just by discussion doesn't mean we have to do this, but I think the administrator is obligated to bring us the opportunities to save money in different places. When we come to salary negotiations, there's going to be so many things and so many variables to this, and I think Deb has given us the opportunity to see what grades, and I'm sure that you have an explanation why you would start this at a 28. Could you please explain it to us, I guess?
Mr. Chair, as a public employer, we have a classification and compensation system that we operate under. So every position within the organization is evaluated to those standards. The 9 or 8 different components that are looked at for each position are factors like initiative and ingenuity, responsibilities that have different matrix that are followed. We have supervision in the number of people that are supervised by this employee. There's different in and out contacts in the matrix that's followed. There's complexity of duties. There's education and experience requirements of each position in a matrix. And then there's learning time and physical effort along with working conditions. So what we do with those when a job description is developed and or modified, we look at how that job description and those duties fit into the matrix that we have, that we evaluate all systems under. As an elected office, we don't do that. The statute defines the position, and that statute defines what the responsibilities are for that. Given there was a vacancy, and given there was the question posed or would be posed about what does that position look like if it were to be hired, the only tool I have and the only tool I know how to use and apply to the entire organization is our classification and compensation system. And so when applying that, not only looked at by myself, but also our consultant that kind of does a cross-check of those positions, if hired and if identified and if recommended through our process that we use as we recommend other positions, it would fall in line with a grade 28. The historic process used when coming up with elected official salaries is different than that of those that are hired staff. And so, I think over time that can morph and that can look different, and historically different boards have made different choices. But this was the first time it was actually the standards applied in a job description identified. But you as a board can certainly deviate from that. We typically follow that classification and compensation system, even though it is one of the hardest things individually to understand in terms of where a position falls, because again, we all know our work and we all value our work, and all value and all work is valuable in the organization. But that's the tool that we use and apply to the entire organization. So that's the only tool I know how to apply, because that's what I have to do when charged with the 200 and almost 300 other people in the organization. So that's where that came from. It's not reflective of service. It's not reflective of quality of work or anything like that. It's just what's defined. It's always harder to understand a downward adjustment than it is certainly an upward adjustment. And so I totally get it. I understand that it may not be something that feels good or something that makes sense to those that it impacts directly, but that's the only tool I have. And that's what was recommended also by an outside consultant. So again, that's where it's coming from.
Commissioner Blaine?
Mr. Chair, to that point, there's a couple thoughts that cross my mind. One is, and I'm gonna fumble this, but if I remember right, it's something called Employment Equity Act Program, or whatever.
Pay
that
equity, I bet. Pay equity.
Pay equity.
Yep.
And so, so you listed a number of criteria in this matrix, and we're not talking about, specifically how, any of those 9 may be weighted more or less than others. Where I have a hard time getting my arms around this is we're talking that how we look at compensation for positions within county government has to do with the position. That this is about the position. So if you're a deputy in the sheriff's department, this is your salary range, or if you're a secretary in this office, this is your salary range. Where I'm having a hard time getting my arms around this is we have a position, and we've been told in the past that the responsibilities and the execution of that job is strongly laid out in statute. What happens in that office, and there's not a lot of creativity, or we provide these services. So I'm having a hard time trying to figure out how we can take that position and say that when this person is in the position, it's graded this way, and when another person comes and takes that position, now that it should be graded differently. What changed in the work that would justify saying that this position is worth less now simply because there's been a change of the individual who sits in that chair? That's that part of that pay equity, and that, this goes to fairness, and it goes to the message that we send to the rest of the employees in the county, which digs into those things that we talk about on these grander scales of management, with strategic planning and culture.
If I'm not mistaken, isn't the difference between elected and appointed? If it was an elected position, the salary's already there. This is an appointed one, and I'm not sure today am I right on that? Between elected and appointed?
It wasn't graded, Mr. Chair.
But Mr. Chair, does it matter? Does it matter right now if the person holding that office is elected or appointed? My friends on the board, does it matter if that position is elected or appointed? Does the work in that office change? That it could be that we could say, oh, now we have somebody that the board appointed on there, we don't have to pay him as much. I'm trying to figure out what changed with the work in the office. Are we going to be fair to the people that we employ, or equitable? And I know a lot of times, and we've heard this said many times in this arena, that fair and equitable aren't always the same thing. Well, we're sending a serious message here, in my mind. And if you think I'm blowing this out of proportion, I'm willing to be sat back down. But I think this is a significant point that I'm making here. That if the work doesn't change, how does the pay change when you change the individual sitting in that seat?
Well, first of all, and please, I'm just talking here. Number one is, I don't want to make a decision based on scales of 28 grade, 32 grade. I put her at a 32, and Deb suggested 28. I put her at a 32. Now we have all other departments and people in the courthouse that we have to talk about. You know, when you talk about fairness, if I'm not mistaken, I sit on a board, and we go through that all the time, that where they look at pay equity, they look at this here with every different grades, and we use an outside consultant besides our own consultants to make that, and I think that's what you said you did. And they suggest that this is what this is if it's not an elected position.
So, you know, you're saying that other employees within the county, if we don't make this adjustment, or if we do make this adjustment, are all going to come and, or if, let's say we keep this position at a grade 32, that somehow a bunch of employees from the county are gonna come running to the board and say, we need to be re-rated?
I'm saying,
I don't see how that happens, because we haven't changed anything. I think the what's more significant to me is if the board allows this to happen, and all of a sudden that when there's a change there, and now we're gonna drop that position 4 grades, what message does that send to the rest of the employees in the county? That your position could be, you know, degraded.
well, I'm arguing this fact over elected and not elected. There's a whole different pay scale on the two things. And at this point, you're not elected, you're appointed. And I'm speaking, I don't know exactly, I guess I rely on Deb to do this, but I'm not gonna sit here today and make an adjustment on pay without some discussion about this, because I don't know what can happen. I know that me making a decision, taking somebody from 28 to 32 without some discussion with administration and how that affects things, I'm not gonna do that. You know, I'm more than that, we've already voted to appoint her, and now when it comes to, I don't know if you can come back at a later time and we discuss the money part of this, but
Mr. Chair, it was never on the grades, it was never valued or calculated on the pay scale. So when it was identified as a grade 32 or 33, it was kind of where the pay was set, because historically, that pay was never set based upon the same factors in an elected position as it was for the rest of the organization. So back when that was determined, that's kind of where it was set. I've never seen where the actual grades were developed or the ratings were applied. And so all I could do in this instance, again, is apply what I apply to the rest of the organization, work with an outside consultant to make sure what I was looking at was correct. There have been instances in which we have looked at a position once a vacancy occurs, and either job functions change in that, or something happened over time in which there's an adjustment made, and sometimes it has been down. And that's occurred before, where in a position, for whatever reason, it may have been inflated because there were other job duties and now those are taken away, or because there was some type of understanding that occurred that were unbeknownst to the people currently sitting there. It has happened before. It's always a difficult conversation to have. I completely understand that. My only suggestion at this point in time is that's what I have as a recommendation. You certainly don't have to follow it. You guys can make whatever decision you want when it comes to that. When it comes to actually setting the position, wage, when that is elected, is 100% up to you, because they don't technically fall in line with our pay equity system, because they're not reported in that, because they are elected. And so you can do what you choose to do. We've always contended that they're most like our hired staff, and so we've tried to apply some of the same standards for that. All I did at this point in time was take a look at the job function as it compares internally, which is the tool that I have, and then that's what came back as applied. But if you want to apply something different, by all means, you tell me what you want to do, and I can go ahead and absolutely execute that. I have zero problem with that.
Well, Mr. Chair, we also, the board also, at the end of the day, has the right to recommend and approve the salaries for all of the elected officers of Morrison County, the recorder, the auditor treasurer, the sheriff, the county attorney. So it's not as if some outside force is saying that these elected officials, get paid, unlimited amount of money. The county board still has that responsibility and that authority at the end of the day to set the ceiling or the base on those members' salaries.
So what?
You know what, maybe if I can interject here. And again, Commissioner Blaine, correct me if I'm wrong, and again, I'm gonna bring this up again, that it was brought to our attention that it was, an overpaid position. But Commissioner Blaine, I think, is making a good point that what changes just from the elected position to an appointed chief deputy recorder? You're the chief deputy recorder as an elected official, correct? That's kind of how it is, right?
She's the
Recorder, excuse me, okay, yeah, all right. So, in this case now, even though we're appointing her as the chief deputy recorder, what, again, I don't understand, and we could just say, you know what, and I think Commissioner Wilson, you made the suggestion that you leave it at a 32, and then it was brought up by our administrator, or am I wrong there?
I did not.
Okay, that's why I want to
Yeah,
clarify
no.
that. So so you just went to the suggestion, I don't know where the 32 came in, but that's where I'm seeing. And again, with Commissioner Blaine, this is things that, are we gonna set a precedent here just because of the fact that someone goes from an elected position to a non-elected, and yet the job title or the job responsibilities are theirs? And if that's where I don't know if I'm wrong on that one, if I'm interpreting you wrong or not, or?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Wincher, first I have to clarify this. We're appointing our chief deputy recorder today as the county recorder. We can say it's interim, but she will be the county recorder the day after Eileen stays home.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
But to your other point, where I was going with that is just in response to the question posed by Ms. Sanders, and I believe she deserves an answer. How does the position be rated at 32 for one person and then changed to 28 when we've just been told multiple times that the work is the same, the responsibilities are the same, nothing's changed in that office. We had the full reveal a week ago when it was revealed to us that it was under Eileen's leadership that they reduced a staff member. So they already saved a staff position in that office over the last years, but we weren't told that until last week. So where I was going with that was trying to bring to light how that can be justified, because she makes a valid point or it states a valid question, and I think we have the responsibility to answer for that.
And I think my answer was that you're not elected yet. Once you're elected, I believe that makes the difference. Right now, you're an employee of the county. When you're elected, and please tell me if I'm wrong, but that's where I see this. The difference is the election.
Mr. Chair, and that's what it wasn't rated, it was paid at that.
Yeah.
And so that would be the difference, but again, you have full capability if it was position rated like other county positions are. That's where the recommendation came in. It was paid at. a grade 32 as an elected or 33 as an elected official. And so that, I contend, was the difference. And so, again, you tell me what you'd like to do. At this point in time, if we hired that job, that's what the recommendation would come in at. But as an elected official, you can pay them at a different rating or a different level. And that would be the difference maybe, but
I'm not okay today to make, and we don't even have to give the pay today, as far as I'm concerned, if you can do that. But I'm not gonna raise anything without some discussion on why we would, why we wouldn't, how it compares, because I can't answer that question myself. I know the decisions that we make hold, and so I think that that needs a little further discussion than just say, let's do this.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Jelinski.
Does this discussion center around, and I'm just asking, because I don't know either, does it really center around two words, appointed and elected? I'm just asking, does grade 28, does grade 32 center around two words, appointed, elected? Asking the question.
yes.
Okay.
In my opinion, because the appointed position, we apply the rating system.
Appointed.
The elected officials, it was paid at that, but it was never actually rated at that, in which the job description was looked at. But again, that's your ability as an elected, as a board to
Mr.
set
Chair?
that.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Lemire.
I believe, I'm gonna throw another wrench in this, but the 28 was a suggestion to maintain and to stay at a 28, whether it was appointed or elected. Because otherwise, it wouldn't have said potential exists for statutory salary appeal. So, to be fair, I believe that when you do this class rating, is to fall in line with I don't know what they use, what's it called, the pay equity thing. But the essence of going to a 28 would be to remain at a 28. So I'm kind of leaning towards Commissioner Blaine and Commissioner Wincher at, what is it, a 32? It doesn't really say what the current, it doesn't have the pay scale of what the current recorder has, but I don't know, that's just my 2 cents. I know that's when I brought this up before with the other elected officials, it was very gracefully but sternly told to me that if we don't give them the same benefits as regular employees, that there exists the statutory salary appeal, and that we don't want to go down that road. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Lemire, I wasn't, I want to reiterate that I wasn't trying to engage the board into setting the salary, and Mr. Chair, in respect.
I think we almost have to, though.
In respect to you as chairman. That wasn't where I was going with that. I just wanted to make sure that there was full understanding by the board about the question raised by Ms. Sanders, that there's a difference there, and I understand that. And if it's the wishes of the majority of this board to run with that position at 4 grades lower than what the current office holder is being paid, and I'm looking at at my sheet from before, and you're looking at, unless I'm reading this wrong, at approximate cost savings of $16,500. So if we're looking at this, we're probably talking about 18 grand that the county would somehow save by paying at a 28 versus a 32. And my point with that is, I have a hard time explaining that. It was the same thing. I've been in the position where I've signed both sides of a paycheck. And when you deal with employees, unless it's strictly an instance where you take someone who is highly experienced, you take someone who's, comes right off the street, but doing the same work and the same job, isn't it fair to that individual to pay them the same?
Mr. Chair, did you miss, I said I agree with you.
And I understand.
okay.
I'm saying
It didn't sound like you heard me right.
the problem I'm having is answering that question.
Mr. Chair, who has the motion and the second on the table?
I don't know either.
Okay. I will make a motion.
We made the motion.
There is no motion on the table right now, is there?
There was.
Yeah, Commissioner Jelinski made the motion, I made the second for more discussion. Again, just to clarify, that does not mean we know that you're for or against.
No, I know that, but it was also at a 28.
Yes.
So.
Yep. So that needs to be modified.
I think we should modify that to a 32 and move on with the appointment of the chief deputy recorder. That's my 2 cents, but you guys are gonna have to change your motions.
Or be it rescinded and
Or
and
rescind
have
it.
something new that we're making a motion on.
Well, no, you can take it, again, Robert's rule, we could take the motion, if it's voted down, then we gotta put another one up.
That's absolutely
Or Commissioner
true.
Jelinski could amend it.
I still have a question
Or
about.
rescinded.
I still have a question about the fact that we had an outside source that this is what our administrator does with everybody in the courthouse. She values that at what this position should be at this time. Elected, not elected, that's a whole different story. You know, there's a top grade and a bottom grade on the elected official too, and there's a price range difference. But I've sat through these things and we've had outside forces and stuff that look to see if we're doing this fairly. And she's done it fairly, and I believe that what she came up with, she feels is fair. And I don't know why I would sit here and question that today, when we're ready to vote on it. But that's just my opinion. I think that we did do diligence in looking at the process that we go through. If you guys just want to give the wages out the way, just do it, I guess. That's what it's about.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if I may, and I would just like to reiterate, just for the sake of argument, and in all respect to Jenny, and forgive me if I said it wrong, but I believe that I made a motion to appoint the chief deputy recorder as the interim county recorder effective May 16th, 2021. I got to be honest with you.
Yep.
I don't think that I said at a rate of XYZ. That was not my motion. Got to tell you guys, that was not my motion at all. And that's not how it was presented to me. If I'm misunderstanding that to anybody, that's not, I did not.
But we have to put a grade there, right? I mean, if
We
we're
probably do. I guess we maybe do,
my
but I'm just
apologies,
saying.
Commissioner.
That wasn't my.
I think it was assumed that that's what was brought
And
forward.
I might be able to go along with you, but that wasn't my motion. 'cause
So if I may,
don't
Mr.
know.
Chair, so if that's the case, we could agree, all five of us could agree to appoint Jenny as our interim
Well,
county
we could, but we
recorder.
haven't.
Well, but I mean, we all could, that's what I
Okay,
said.
excuse me,
We
good.
all could, but then we would have to renegotiate or negotiate the salary at a later date, is that what we're talking?
Mr. Chair, in all fairness, I did identify that grade 28 is what I would assume at this point in time until that position would be elected. So in Commissioner Lemire's, maybe I didn't speak, it wasn't written, so I apologize for that. But that's what I assumed to be the case. Again, because I'd apply what I'd apply to positions as they were here, but as an elected official, you can do different.
Well, then, how would it be if, based upon what I just heard, Mr. Chair, if I restated my motion, just for the sake of argument, to appoint the chief deputy recorder as interim county recorder effective May 16th, 2021, at a grade 28? That's what we assumed I said,
Yep.
and maybe there isn't even going to be a second to it. Can't tell you that, don't know that. But that would be.
I guess Randy was your
Yeah,
second.
I'll still second it, but again, that doesn't mean I'm for
We
or
have a
against, just to
motion-
get more
We have a
discussion.
motion on the floor to appoint Jenny at a grade 28. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose?
Nay.
Okay. So,
Mr. Chair, again, I would like for a roll call.
okay, Commissioner Lemire,
No.
Commissioner Wincher,
No.
Commissioner Jelinski.
Aye.
Commissioner Blaine.
No.
Commissioner Wilson, aye. Okay,
So, Mr. Chair, since that motion just failed, and in order to expedite things, I'm going to make a motion that this board appoints the chief deputy recorder as the interim county recorder effective May 16th, and that this individual be paid at a grade 32. And I'll ask for a second.
Second.
okay, we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair, can I clarify that it would be a step one, or what would you like in that?
Step one.
So is that where the current position is at now? Is that a step one?
No, I assume it's at probably the top of the grade or close to it.
And if I may, Ms. Chair, and Deb, you can explain this. When we have a new position come in, even though they've been here for more than a year, then that steps change just because of that.
Yes, and so,
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, I agree, this would be at step one. If we're going to go to a 32, then this would be at a step one.
Yes.
Yep, Mr. Chair, it would take the current salary of $24.69 per hour and go to, and let me get it for you. $24.69 to a $32.50 per hour.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We'll take roll call here. Commissioner Wincher,
Aye.
Commissioner Jelinski,
Nay.
Commissioner Blaine,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson, nay. Commissioner Lemire.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
All right, thank you, gentlemen.
All right.
And that will also be
Thank you.
just
Thank you
by,
for your time.
Mr. Chair, by default, what we will be doing is working with Jenny, and because it's an elected position, paying out the PTO that's accrued, and so that position moves into where there isn't PTO. That's typical with an elected official that they don't earn that. So we'll work on those details, and congratulations, Jenny. I look forward to working with you.
Congratulations, Jenny.
Okay, next, administrators report.
All right, Mr. Chair, next, we have, based upon discussion and a request by the Lake Shamana Improvement District, we had, for topic of discussion, the request to support the pumping project, the Lake Improvement District project to lower the lake level. And so last week, we had representatives from the Lake Improvement District come in and request that that be considered by the county board. So I'm here to, advance that conversation and get direction from you on what you would like to do moving forward. And I think what I would do, if you're okay with it, is share what that resolution is and have an open up discussion for direction from that.
Okay.
Hi, Cindy.
Okay, who's gonna give us the resolution?
I am going to try to find that here in a second. Hold on. I have a few of them open here, so I gotta make sure nope, that's the four-wheeler club.
The resolution was not part
That's
of the
not in our
packet, was it,
packet.
Deb?
It wasn't in the packet, no, just hold on one second, let me find it quick. I'm sorry. I'm gonna disconnect this for a second. How many hours leaving?
Are we gonna get a cup of coffee?
What?
Gonna get a cup of coffee?
Well, I didn't make more, now I'm gonna get in trouble for that. Sorry, I thought I had it open, I've been opening too many
No, you know how to game it.
draft letters.
Figured I better hurry up back.
Oh, for goodness sakes.
Running out of coffee, or I could have texted you. Said, hey, trying to pull it up.
You want me to go make you some quick?
Here it is, I found it, I'm sorry.
Is this the original one?
Okay. Now let me share it back out here. All right, those online, can you see that resolution? Yes, okay, perfect. All right, there you go, Mr. Chair. This is the resolution that was submitted or identified when Rick and Company came last week.
Okay. Who's going to talk about this? Or
Well,
just-
I don't know if Commissioner Lemire, maybe you have insight on that you want to start the conversation?
Is this the original?
Yes,
Okay.
the original that was submitted. Mhm.
Yeah. Well, before us is Rick Roser was here last, well, it must have been a couple weeks ago now, or 3 weeks ago. I don't remember exactly, but this is the resolution that he brought forward. It talks about multitude of things, losing trees and vegetation and damaging the homes and damaging the township roads. And it mentioned watersheds and helping with the watersheds. And we're bringing it back again because could you?
Yep.
Yeah. Because of their high water project, they got all the necessary homeowners on board with their project to drain Lake Shamna to a reasonable level, but they also have to petition Todd County to drain the water into ditch 41. This here states that the county, I'm gonna back up a little bit.
Okay.
We had to turn off the water project, and we were gonna divert water going into Shamana. That, we approved moving forward with that, and that had a cost of approximately $200,000. But we could not get all the property owners' permission to go in their watershed or through their land, so we had to abandon that project. We, as a board, approved up to $200,000 for that project to assist Shamana, giving them time to get their project going. We failed on that because we couldn't get the proper signatures to move forward with it. They have the proper signatures. They need permission from Todd County for ditch 41. They got a petition in there. This money will assist Todd County in keeping ditch 41 manageable, or I don't know the proper word for it, but so we're here before you today to ask if that money that we had for Turn Off the Faucet project could be used to assist Todd County with their ditch 41 so that Shamana can move forward with pumping the lake using ditch 41. And they would only get the money if the project moves forward. I don't know if I can do any better than that or not, but.
Other questions on that?
Mr. Chair, I just so you know, I followed up with John Kolb, who's an attorney, and we had identified that, I think, early on, and I sought counsel from him just to make sure everything was legally okay, and that came back with a check in terms of you're certainly able to consider this, and there isn't a problem with that. I did reach out to Mark at the DNR just to make sure reference to the DNR components of the resolution were acceptable with him and that agency, and got the green light on that also in a check from that. I did reach out to Shannon at Morrison County Soil and Water District, and the question kind of centered around the One Water, One Plan reference. That isn't an actually approved plan yet. It's, I think, assumed to be, and I think that process is going, but given that it isn't actually set out and that plan isn't formally adopted, how that would be, my suggestion and hers also would be to just remove reference of that, even though I think we can conceptually identify that it would be the case. I hate to hold an agency or accountable for an actual approved plan and its goals and its function when it isn't actually approved by the entities participating in it. So that was the only component in that I would recommend we maybe adjust to that. And I think there is some opportunity within this, if you do want to consider that, to really focus on kind of the general area and in the welfare of the area. I think you as a county board have very much identified, and you are charged with the health, wellness, or welfare and safety, I was gonna say, there's one more, and it's important, but what the heck is that? Health, safety, and welfare of the county, and its residents, and so that's important.
And if I could add to the health safety, it might not be affecting county roads right now. It is affecting county watersheds. Watersheds are full. You know, maybe not next year or the year after, but 5 years from now, who knows if our roads are underwater? And that 200,000 will be peanuts compared to what that'll cost. As Scandia Valley Township can attest to, they've spent $165,000, and that's just to make the roads accessible. Not to mention the property taxes we're losing from the lake. We've written off millions of dollars the past few years. I think that's all I have right now.
Okay, did you make that as a motion, or this has been discussion, right?
I didn't make it as a motion, but I know I asked Deb about some possibility of adding some language about county infrastructure.
Can I bring that up, perhaps? We could talk
That would
about
be
that if
great if
it's
you
of
would,
interest
please.
to the board.
Yeah. I just didn't know when you started that, if it started
Well-
off as a motion or it didn't, and that's fine.
It didn't, because that isn't the one I want. So,
That's fine.
I mean, that isn't
So let me make sure
the
this is-
updated